I now convene the September 30th, 2021 meeting of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Catherine Williams-Brown.
Present.
Jose Cardenas.
Present.
C. Michael Cooney.
Here.
Michael De La Torre. Marisol De La Torre Escobedo.
Here.
Anna Marie Francois.
Present.
Makita Gwino Shire.
Present.
Megan Gross.
Present.
Johanna Howard.
Present.
Susan Aradia.
Present.
Harry Jackson.
Here.
Bonnie Clapp.
Present.
Monica Martinez.
Here.
David Simmons. Tina Sloan.
Here.
Kimberly Weiss Smith.
Present.
Michael De La Torre.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Mary, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, please stand and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Kimberly White Smith as the new ex officio member representing the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities. Dr. Kimberly White Smith is professor and dean of the La Fetra College of Education at the University of La Verne, a Hispanic serving institution that serves approximately 50% Latinx and about 40% first generation students. With more than 25 years of experience in urban education and teacher development, Dr. White Smith is behind endeavors that foster academic justice for Black, Indigenous, and Latinx students, as well as other marginalized student identities through enhanced educational environments, organizational structures, policies, and teaching practices. Dr. White Smith engages the national conversation on teacher education through critical positions. She is vice president of the California Council on Teacher Education and a member of the board of directors for the American Association of Colleges of Teacher Education and WestEd, a nonprofit research lab that generates over $160 million to study and transform education in the U.S. Welcome, Dr. White Smith. We are so pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much, colleagues.
Next, I would like to introduce our new commission student liaison, Adriana Baez. Is it Adriana or Adriana?
It's Adriana.
Adriana, and Baez is?
Yeah, Baez is right. Thank you.
Welcome. Adriana Baez, a native to Northern California, is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in liberal arts for education from Pepperdine University, as well as obtaining a multiple subject credential through Pepperdine's teacher preparation program. Adriana has extensive experience in working with elementary age children and has most recently been a part of diversifying Pepperdine's teacher literacy course through a mentorship research program. She's a strong advocate for education as a human right and is excited for its experience as the student liaison to further her passion for the teaching profession. Welcome, Ms. Baez. We are so happy to have you here. All right, we have a few general announcements this morning. I'd like to remind everyone about the meeting procedures before we get to today's agenda. Because many of us are working remotely, this meeting is being conducted via Zoom. Staff is maintaining a minimal presence in the commission building, but everyone else is participating from their own locale. I'd like you to know that everyone's microphone is muted to eliminate any background noise that may hinder others from hearing what's being said. Commissioners and presenters can unmute yourself, but please mute your microphones after you are done speaking. Commissioners, some of you may be using video audio functions, and some of you will be using audio only. Commissioners that would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Because this is a teleconference meeting, we need to conduct each vote by roll call. Just before the vote, we will remind everyone to make sure you are unmuted so that you don't miss anyone's vote. With regards to Zoom identification, we'd like to ask the members of the public who want to make public comment to check their Zoom identification. Your Zoom identification is the name used when logging into the meeting. It's important that the Zoom identification is accurate so we can all call on you appropriately during public comment. With respect to public comment, we will review those procedures. The committee chair will announce when the public comment period is open during the presentation of the agenda item and ask for anyone who wishes to comment to notify the meeting moderator. Individuals who join the meeting via the Zoom webcast will need to click on the raise hand icon to inform the meeting operator that they'd like to speak on an item. The moderator will notify the individual when it's their turn to speak by calling their Zoom ID. At that time, the individual will be prompted to unmute their microphone and will be able to share their comment. The Zoom ID name used by the member of the public to join the Zoom meeting will just be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Individuals who join the meeting via the US toll-free number will need to press *9 on their phone to inform the meeting operator that they would like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual it's their turn to speak by calling the last 4 digits of their phone number and will allow them to unmute their telephone. At that time, the individual will be prompted to press *6 and will be able to share their comment. Please note only the last 4 digits of the caller's phone number will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Each of our committee chairs will have the discretion to set a time limit on comments depending on the number of speakers seeking to speak on a particular item. We ask that you keep your remarks brief and focused on the particular item you are speaking to. You will get a 1-minute warning and will be asked to finish your sentence before being muted by the meeting host. Recording. Also, just like an in-person meeting, this meeting is being recorded. After the meeting, the archived audio and video will be available via the Commission's website. All right. Item 1A is the approval of the June ad hoc minutes and the August 2021 minutes. First, do I have a motion from a member of the ad hoc committee to approve the June 2021 ad hoc committee minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo. Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Cooney.
I'm sorry, the ad hoc committee for the June one, it's actually only you and Marisol can, because the ad hoc committee member back then is Tina Sloan, Marisol De La Torre. Yes, so only 2 of you can.
I will second that then. Discussion. All right, will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo.
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, do I have a motion from a member of the executive committee to approve the August 2021 executive committee minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Martinez. Do I have a second? Commissioner Cooney, your hand is up. Seconded by Commissioner Cooney. Discussion? Seeing none, will the recording secretary call for the vote?
C. Michael Cooney.
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo.
Aye.
Harry Jackson.
Aye.
Bonnie Clark.
Abstain.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
All right. The next item is 1B. I'm sorry. Did I skip over something? Yes. Did I?
Yes, we still need to approve the August general session,
Thank you.
the whole commission meeting minutes.
All right, thank you. Finally, do I have a motion to approve the August 2021 regular session minutes? A motion by Commissioner Martinez, second by Commissioner Cooney. Discussion? All right, will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Abstain?
Megan Gross,
Abstain.
Johanna Howard,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Terry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Abstain.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we move to item 1B, approval of the September 2021 agenda. We have an agenda insert 1C and a revised item 2C. State Board of Education President Linda Darling Hammond will be present to speak to item 2A, and we are therefore rearranging the order of the Educator Preparation Committee items, and we'll take up item 2A at approximately 10 o'clock this morning. Do I have a motion to approve the September 2021 agenda? Moved by Commissioner Hartwig. Do I have a second? I see Commissioner Klatt. Discussion. All right, will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Howard,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Terry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Agenda item 1C is approval of the September 2021 consent calendar. Do commissioners have any items they would like to consider in closed session? Okay, I do not see any. Do I have a motion to approve all remaining items or all items on the consent calendar? It's moved by Commissioner Jackson and seconded by Commissioner Hartwig. Discussion? Will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Howard,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Terry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Commissioner, my remarks are going to be very brief this morning. It is simply a message of gratitude to our educators who have returned to the schools. That's many of you here. To our service people, our staff who are all working in schools right at this moment, our administrators, our leaders who are keeping everyone safe. I want to thank our governor. I want to thank everyone in our state agencies and in leadership positions who are working so diligently to keep our educators and service professionals and students safe in these settings. I'm so glad, as we all are, that our students are back in schools and that they have the nurturing educators and service professionals there with them that they need. And I want you all to know that in these times, we are listening to what is happening at this very moment. We are responding to the needs of our educators who are currently in schools. We are responding to the needs of prospective educators and administrators and service professionals who want to become the professionals in our schools. We are doing many things in order to respond to those moments when we were listening to you. And therefore, it is important that we listen when you give your comments today, and we thank that you are here. Thank you that you are here. Finally, I want you to know too, that we are also moving forward. We always are looking forward to ensure that our students are getting the educators they need. And so we are balancing both responsiveness to the moment, keeping all of you safe, keeping our ensuring that you're able to do what you know how to do for our students, and also ensuring that our future educators are going to be well prepared to do the same. So again, thank you for doing what you're doing. This is not an easy time to be an educator. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Executive Director Mary Sandy for her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me just say, hear, hear. Thank you for your remarks. Welcome, commissioners and members of our stakeholder community who are present today. Happy fall. I think this is the first time in at least a decade that we've had a one-day commission meeting. And it looks to be fairly short and focused, but I think we're going to pack the day. So we appreciate your forbearance and your movement to September 30th in order to accommodate all of our needs. And I am going to keep my report that brief. Just say good morning, good meeting, and pass it back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director Sandy. Do any commissioners have items to report? Commissioner Cardenas.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy that everyone is here on this last day of September. Just wanted to report a little bit as far as what we're experiencing at the schools and what's been going on. And I know it's been a year of moments of laughter, moments of tears, of exhaustion, of jubilation, all these mixed emotions that I know that everyone is having at this point in time, not just our educators, but also our students. And in this month of September, there's just a lot that's been going on, from Attendance Awareness Month, you know, people going out to doing home visits and checking in on students and still checking in on families, to Suicide Awareness Month, where our students have definitely felt the effects of the pandemic and being at home and coming back to school. And then in the month of October, everything ramps back up again, and we're looking at Red Ribbon Week, but there's a day that's really coming up called Unity Day. Unity Day is a day where we all come together and really be as one. And during these times, we really need to continue to collaborate and continue to work together during these very difficult and, again, in exciting moments, because it's those mixed emotions. And so we know that right now we have students that are in virtual learning. We have teachers that are doing virtual learning. We have students that are in person. We have families that are quarantining. I know myself, I've had to experience that myself with my own family and my own students. So this revolving door of back and forth. And so I just want to acknowledge as well to all of our educators and our teachers and administrators for hanging in there and really making this work, because this is definitely taking a lot longer. We thought it took longer just being on virtual learning, but it's taking a lot longer for us. And the patience that everyone is having, and just so impressed with people working. And the other part is our nurses in our school system who are doing contact tracing, who are really trying to, keep our students and our staff members safe. Everyone's been pitching in, filling in classrooms. I know I've had the great opportunity of being in a classroom and providing some lessons for students. And some of the things that some of our students are saying, and I had asked them a question, what would you want your parents to know? What would you want educators to know? And a lot of them wrote to me and said, that they want the adults to know that they're also mentally exhausted. At the same time, school is difficult, but they're so happy to be back at school, to be back, to not be on a computer. So there's those moments again of happiness and just of a little bit of fear too. But our kids are showing up. They're so happy to be there. Our teachers are excited to see kids. And I think that's what keeps all of us going, right? To see our students. And that's what brings us back to the work setting. I wanted to mention that CAS, the California Association of School Counselors, their topic this year is finding pathways and healing hearts. I think that is a great topic of what we're all dealing with, really finding those pathways of how we can help heal each other and continue with that compassion. They're going to have over 40 workshops on October 29th through the 30th. It will be virtual, so if you can't attend on those days, they will have it available. But it does really focus on self-care, on developing safety plans. And some of the speakers that they're going to be having will be Dr. Michelle Borba, Toby Boyd, Derek Francis, Lori Woodley, and again, it's open to all administrators, to school counselors, to psychologists, to teachers. This is a great workshop that'll be occurring again on October 29th and 30th, really focusing again on finding pathways and healing hearts. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. For all the educators that are out there, thank you for your compassion, your patience. Don't forget to smile. Don't forget to laugh, especially in those moments when we're feeling a little bit frustrated. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Cardenas, that getting your perspective on what is happening currently in the schools. And I've written down finding pathways and healing hearts, because that is a touchstone that I think we can all use at the moment and for our meeting today. Okay, Commissioner Brown.
Morning, everyone, and mil gracias, Commissioner Cardenas, for your not just enthusiasm, but inspiration. I'm thinking about Unity Day in particular, and I want to be brief, but it's really hard for me to be brief, as everyone knows here, because there's a very important item on the agenda today that unfortunately I'm not going to be able to be present for. So I'm going to take a little privilege here to make a few comments about that item. But first, on behalf of the community colleges of California, we too have many people who are both thrilled to be back and a little anxious about that. And so one of the things that we've been thinking about is, how can we be best at what's next as we are moving towards what's next, rather than lamenting what we can't go back to or worrying about what we're trying to do and are we doing it well enough. So I'll add to your lines there, Commissioner Cardenas, about trying to think about both at the same time, which all educators always do. We're always thinking about, if you've been a teacher in a classroom, you're always thinking about how is the group doing? Oh, and how are the individuals doing? How are the children doing? And oh, how are the families? So we're sort of a both and group, aren't we? So I will now shift to the one thing I wanted to make a few comments about, because I'm unable to be at the item, and it's an exciting item. For so many years and thousands of hours, and in the wake of so many people to get here today, we're going to move forward towards bringing in early childhood education into our field. And I just want to say that I understand that today is another checkpoint, but it's also an opportunity to move forward. Today, so many of you have been listening to these reports of so many people over the years that have been working to build a coherent system for the credentialing. Universal Preschool is coming on board, and we're going to look today about how we can draw from both pools of professional educators who know how to teach children. And that's going to be, I think, a really rich discussion. I think about the need for an early childhood credential. You know, I've talked about it over and over the years. I think this is a concept check today, and a way to say yes, and we will build it. So briefly, I just think the great reveal, which all of you commissioners know that I keep bringing up, is that early childhood education is here, and it deserves to have an equitable place at the public education table. I think that we want this commission to work with all the teacher preparation programs that we have in this state to build that, and to find a pathway for both for all of the educators who are interested and want to have the capacity, strength, and skill set to educate our youngest citizens. So we'll look at how we can study and survey that. We need to seriously support those efforts. I think now is our time. Our field in particular has a culture of collaboration and community. I mean, look at all the comments, and I know all the commissioners already have. We have items sometimes that have one or maybe two comments. We have more than a dozen. That's how many people really want to work to provide a unified way to do this. So I will end with unity, as Commissioner Cardenas mentioned to us. Thank you, and it's going to be a great item in it because it's a really worthy cause. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. I'm so glad you made your comments here so that we could have them when we discuss the item. We'll be sorry to miss you. And I have also written down, how can we be best at what's next? So we'll keep that in mind. Thank you. Commissioner Heredia.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and to the public also. I just wanted to share a little bit about, as we come back to school, school board members, that I represent across the state of California and actually nationally, are faced with increasingly hostile, contentious members of during their board meetings. And, this is across the state. And I mention this because school board members receive information about policy. They create policy. They help to set direction for a district. For example, early child education. One of the things I'm passionate about myself. They need lots of discussions about those in districts about how they are going to accommodate class, extra space. Where are they going to find the educators? But it's become increasingly difficult to do the business of school districts because of organized groups of people that come and are very, willfully disobedient. So the California School Board Association has written a letter to the governor, asking the governor to work with local law enforcement to assure the safety of school board members during their meeting. I, for one, I'm the president of a school board and had to recess twice during the meeting in September 1st. And then we had to quickly exit the building for our own safety. And, we are focused on ensuring that children get the optimal educational experiences that they can. But at the same time, we're unable to do that unless we are protected, unless we have the freedom to do the people's business. And so again, the letter to the governor, outlines the hostile climate at local board meetings and the reluctance sometimes of law enforcement to ensure that people are either wearing a mask or, leave a boardroom when asked to do so. But I look forward to, as Commissioner Brown was talking about the early childhood education, and we know that's coming up, but hopefully that we can continue to, to do our job as board members across this state, and with the encouragement of, we're encouraged hopefully that the governor will work with local law enforcement to protect us, not only school board members, but to protect staff who come to the meetings and members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Heredia. I'm so sorry to hear this, and I hope that we are going to be able to, and you are going to be able to, and all board members and all staff are going to be able to continue to do what's best and what's next. Other commissioners? All right. Do any liaisons have items to report? Commissioner Rodriguez.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, and I know that these are tough times, especially for what was just shared about the board meetings, and I do feel that we're all together doing some incredible work to bring a sense of cohesion and peace, hopefully, to these upcoming situations. The September board meeting was also a one-day meeting, and the highlights to share with the commission was the board's action to approve the continued use of the shortened Smarter Balanced summative assessments for English language arts, literacy, and math for the 2021-2022 school year. As you may recall, last year, the U.S. Department of Ed provided some flexibilities to support the administration of the assessments, given the realities of remote learning. And as Commissioner Cardenas just said, there's hybrid situations happening as well currently. So the department emphasized the flexibilities of administrating the shortened version of statewide assessments, offering remote administration and extending the testing window. The state board adopted testing blueprints offered by the Smarter Balance Consortium that aligned with all the flexibilities offered by the department. With the return to in-person instruction this year, it is important that educators have detailed, actionable data that will provide insight on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and that it had on the student progress, and to support student learning as we move forward. To attend to the needs while continuing to reduce testing burdens on LEAs, the Smarter Balance Consortium has approved continued use of the adjusted blueprints for the ELA and math summative assessments. In September, the board again approved the use of these blueprints to increase instructional time as students return to in-person instruction while providing educators with vital information. The blueprints are identical to the blueprints used in the 2020-2021 administration. The disadvantage to using adjusted blueprints is a reduction in the detailed student performance information reported to educators and parent guardians. While the overall scale score and performance level will still be reported in 21-22, claim level results for individual students as well as target reports for groups of students cannot be reported until 2022-23. But we will again have this information in that year. The next commission meeting will have some substantive updates as the board will be looking at the National Board Certification Incentive Program and an administration plan for $3 billion in community schools implementation, just to name a few of the items that will be of interest to the commission. The California Summer School for the Arts was all online this year, and if you're not familiar with it, it's 4 weeks of creativity. Students from all over the world, but mainly California, come together and they learn a variety of, a lot of them already have some experience, but they hone it with experts and artists from all over the world. And so it's normally in person, and this year's class continued online. It was a very memorable experience, and congratulations to the class of 2021. They received medals from Governor Newsom of their accomplishment, and many of them go on to study art and make our world that much more colorful. But not just that, we also know that art, creativity is such an important part of the healing process that we're all going through as a community, as a nation, as in the world. And so it's great to see our young people engaging in arts in this manner. And lastly, I'd like to let everyone know that on October 6th, next Wednesday, I've been invited to speak to the by Latinos for Education. And it's a panel with, let's see here, Miriam Calderon, Deputy Assistant Secretary, U.S. Department of Education, Angelica Infante Green, Commissioner of Education, and Carlos Santiago, Massachusetts Commissioner of Higher Education. And I can send the information to Haiju and forward it on to you. We are talking about reclaiming the promise of educational equity and the state of Latino education. And when we talk about recruiting teachers of color, that is so important for our children to have teachers of color, but also more important, it's important for them to be well prepared, right? And for us to make sure that we have well-prepared teachers in front of students. And so that is actually my quote. We want to have excellent preparation so that the teachers understand the struggles that our students are facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liaison Rodriguez. Always so important to hear what's happening at the State Board. Do other liaisons have items to report? All right. Given that, I now recess the general session and move to the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Martinez, will you please convene the committee?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, and thank you for everyone for the reports and the empathy and the support we provide for our teachers and during this time. So thank you, everyone, and we'll just get down to business. I'd like to call the September 2021 meeting of the Educator Prep Committee to order. We have 4 agenda items before us today. You all heard Chair Sloan say that we'll be reordering the items. So the item 2A will be presented approximately at 10 a.m. Hint, hint, that means maybe we won't have a break until after that, commissioners. We will announce when the public comment period is open following the presentation of each agenda item. Members of the public who wish to comment will be asked to notify the meeting moderator in the following ways. I'm sure you guys never want to hear these again, but we're still in COVID times. Individuals who join the meeting via Zoom webcast will need to click on the raise hand icon to inform the meeting moderator that they'd like to speak on the item. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling out their Zoom ID. Please remember that the Zoom ID is the name used when logging into the meeting. At that time, the individual will be prompted to unmute their microphone and will be able to share their comment. Individuals who join the meeting via US toll-free number will need to press *9 on their phone to inform the meeting moderator that they'd like to speak on the item. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling out the last 4 digits of the phone number and will allow them to unmute the phone. At that time, the individual will be prompted to press *6 and will be able to share their comment. You'll see that we have this fancy new timer, blue sky timer up there on the screen. And this will be used for individual comments as a reminder that we have time limits on individual comments so that we can maximize the number of folks who get to express their comments to all of us. So with that, we're going to move to the first item, which is item 2B, initial institutional approval, stage 2 eligibility requirements for Los Altos School District. This item is being presented by Puna and Betty. This is an action item. Miss Betty, will you please begin?
Yes. Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you. Morning. Item 2B presents Los Altos School District's responses to the Stage 2 eligibility requirements for the Commission's consideration and possible approval. Los Altos School District is seeking initial institutional approval to become eligible to offer a teacher induction program. To provide a little context, Los Altos is an elementary school district that's located in the San Francisco Peninsula area, and it serves K through 8th grade students from the cities of Los Altos, Mountain View, Palo Alto, to name a few. They've been a part of the Santa Cruz Silicon Valley New Teacher Project Induction Consortium for over 15 years. And again, they're seeking to sponsor their own teacher induction program. We have with us today the following representatives from the district. We have Sandra McGonigal, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. We have Greg Drummond, Curriculum and Instruction Coordinator, who will also serve as the Director for the proposed Teacher Induction Program. And finally, Sarah Gerlinger, District Coach and current mentor, who will serve as the lead mentor of the proposed Teacher Induction Program. They will be available to answer any of your questions about Los Altos eligibility requirement submission. You'll find the full submission as a link at the bottom of the first page of the item. And that link will take you to their new teacher induction webpage, where you'll find the link to the full submission. So moving on to page 2 of the item, you will find the IIA chart with the current stage 2 highlighted. So as a reminder, approval of stage 2 does not permit Los Altos School District to offer the proposed teacher induction program, as more specific information and documentation regarding the design of the proposed program will be submitted in subsequent stages of the IIA process. And moving on to pages 3 to 5 of the item, you will find a staff recommendation of a line for criterion 1 through 9. And then from pages 6 through 8, you will find summaries and excerpts of Los Altos responses to criterion 10 through 12 for the Commission's consideration. And then specifically for criterion 11, the institution is required to post a third-party notification on their website, and to date, no comments have been received. Finally, considering the information provided in the agenda item, staff recommends that the Commission grant eligibility to Los Altos School District. This would allow the district to move forward to stage 3 of the IIA process. And in granting eligibility, the Commission can choose to identify any topics that you may specifically want to see addressed in stage 3. And if the Commission chooses to deny eligibility, you may acknowledge what is seen as incomplete in the current submission. And with that, staff is available to answer any process questions. And we have Sandra, Greg, and Sarah available to answer any questions about Los Altos IIA Stage 2 eligibility requirement submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Betty. We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raised hand icon. If participating through the Zoom or the phone call, press *9 if participating by phone. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Harpeep Kerr, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello, good morning. I have a question regarding 2A about state preschool and transitional kindergarten.
Hi,
like
Ms. Harpeet. We are actually on agenda item 2B.
Okay.
Eligibility for Los Altos. You would need to call back in when we take on 2A, which will be approximately at 10 a.m. So would you be able to call back in at that time?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Recording secretary, are there other public comments?
We have no additional public comment.
Okay. A public comment period for this item is now closed. Just give it a second to make sure. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? And remember that we have representatives from Los Altos with us today. And I will look for raised hands or virtual hands. Okay. Commissioner Klatt.
Thank you. Good morning. I have a question about the proposal, and I realize that it might be something that maybe isn't entirely fleshed out yet, but if you can provide any information now or when you come back, if it's approved, I'm curious about the mentors and the lead mentor roles. And right now, I think in the proposal, it showed that there'll be a part-time lead mentor and 3 to 4 part-time mentors who will have up to 9 teachers that they work with each. And I was wondering if you could explain, like I said, either now, and if you can't now, I understand, but a little bit more about that. Would these part-time teachers be employed as full-time within the district, but only maybe part-time as mentors and part-time as teachers, or are these teachers who would be coming from outside? So I'm looking for just a little bit more information about the structure of the employment of the mentors and when and how they would be interacting with their mentees.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Clapp, for the question. And you're right, it's not completely fleshed out yet, but our vision is that our mentors would be full-time release mentors from the classroom. So they'd be teachers on special assignment who have responsibilities both as mentors for new teachers and for instructional coaches, as instructional coaches for veteran teachers. And in that dual role, we'll have the opportunity to serve both groups.
Thank you. That's actually very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Commissioner Klatt. Other questions? I don't see any virtual hands and I don't see any raised hands. So I'll just give it a second more before we close discussion. Okay. All right, so jump in if I missed you. So otherwise I'm going to move towards action on this item. Do I have a motion to either grant eligibility for Los Altos School District to move forward to stage 3 or deny eligibility? Commissioner Klatt, do you have a motion to grant or to deny? To grant?
Correct. A motion to grant.
Great, thank you. And I saw Commissioner Jackson seconds the motion to grant eligibility for Los Altos School District to move forward to stage 3. Are there any further discussion on this item? Okay, with that, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Marco De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Harry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina
Great.
Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Beatty, for presenting the item, and thank you, Mr. Drummond, for coming today. And we will move to our next agenda item 2C.
Thank you.
Next item 2C is the annual report card on California teacher preparation programs for the academic year 2019 to 2020. This item is being presented by David DeGeer and Phi Lau. This is an action item. Mr. DeGeer, will you please begin?
Good morning, Commissioners. This item is the annual report on California teacher preparation programs for the academic year 2019-2020. We want to start with some background about why we make this annual report card. Each state is required to submit an annual report card to the Federal Department of Education. These reports are also known as Title II reports because the requirements in sections of Title II of the Higher Education Act. Next slide. Each California institution that prepares teachers is required to report data on their candidates to the Commission each April. Commission staff develop our state report based on the data consolidated from all of our preparation programs, and we submit that data to the federal government in October. The U.S. Education Department consolidates all state data into the Secretary's report, which is posted on their Title II website the following April. Next slide, please. A federal Title II contractor created an online institution and program report card data entry tool that all states and territories use. One of the values of using a common tool is that data is comparable across states and territories. Next slide. So, in looking what is in the annual report card, the Title II report includes data on initial teaching credentials only. That is, multiple subject, single subject, and education specialist credentials. The report does not include designated subjects or services credentials. So the key is this is a focus on new teachers. Next slide, please. Data is disaggregated by the type of program. So for traditional route, for us, that is institutions of higher education with a traditional student teaching program. Alternative route IHE based are the university intern programs, and alternative route non-IHE based are the district and county intern programs. And disaggregating the data this way allows comparison across types of preparation programs. Next slide. All teacher preparation programs report on the following exams: the Basic Skills Exam, the California Subject Examination for Teachers, or CSET, Reading Instruction Competence Assessment, or RECA, and Teaching Performance Assessments. The pass rate data are calculated for 5 different groups. The first group are enrolled candidates who completed all non-clinical coursework. So that would be all candidates who completed all coursework but not completed their student teaching. Group 2 is other enrolled students. Group 3 is program completers for the current year, 2019-20. And then groups 4 and 5 are program completers for the previous 2 years, 2018-19 and 2017-18. So that gives some perspective of the past 2 years. For each assessment, we must report the number of candidates who took the exam, the number who passed the exam, and the pass rate. Next slide. In addition to institutional pass rate information, the Title II report includes information on a number of other topics. Data elements submitted from preparation programs are listed in Table 1 on page 2 of this agenda item. Data elements that will be submitted for the state report card are listed in Table 2 on page 3. My colleague Fifi Lau will now walk you through how Title II data is available for quick access to the public and researchers through data dashboards and file downloads on the Commission's website.
Thank you, David. Good morning, Commissioners. We'll go through the highlights of the 2019-20 report, and we'll start with the distribution of institutions and reports by route on agenda item page 4, table 3, and also on this presentation slide. So there was a total of 153 reports submitted by 96 institutions for academic year 2019-20. Of the 153 reports, there were 83 traditional program reports, 57 IHE-based or university intern, and 13 alternative non-IHE-based or district intern program reports submitted. Data displayed on the presentation slide are available on the Commission's Title II Highlights dashboard webpage. In fact, all slides presented as selected findings in this presentation will display data visualizations pulled directly from the Title II dashboards. You can use a figure number to find data on the dashboard. The link to the specific dashboard is also provided at the bottom of each slide. On page 3 of the agenda item, there is a link that will take you to the main Title II page, and from there you can navigate to the specific Title II dashboard page. All right, so continuing on, the Title II report starts with Section 1, Program Information on page 5 of the agenda item. This is a lengthy section with a number of data tables with information on admission requirements, such as GPA, supervised clinical hour requirements, and demographic information for total enrollment in 2019-20. In Section 1, let's begin with clinical experience hours for student teaching, which you can find on agenda item page 8 and on the left panel of the presentation slide. There were 41 institutions that reported 600 to 699 hours required for student teaching, and 6 institutions that reported 700 and more hours. If we take a look at the number of clinical hours prior to student teaching, we can see that most institutions reported less than 200 hours. On the right panel of the presentation slide, if we combine clock hours for both prior to student teaching and for student teaching, we can see that 96% of institutions met the mandated 600 hours of clinical experience. Moving on page 8, table 6A of the agenda item, and on the left panel of the presentation slide provides gender distribution of total enrollment. Starting in 2018-19, Title II collects the number of total enrollment, and from the total, a subset of that will be the number of program completers. When looking at gender distribution by program routes, the traditional program, there were 72% of female, 26% of male, and 2% not reported. In alternative programs, we can see that there were a slightly higher percentage of males. Table 6A and the right panel of the presentation slide also displays race and or ethnicity distribution of total enrollment. When looking at all program routes, less than half were white, about 1/3 were Hispanic or Latino, 7% Asians, 4% Black or African Americans, less than 1% American Indian or Alaska Native, less than 1% Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, and 4% identify themselves as belonging to 2 or more races. 11% did not report race and ethnicity. The report also includes demographics distributed by segment for the last 5 years, and that starts on page 10. On page 13 of the agenda item, and also on the presentation slide, we get a broader picture of the total enrollment, especially for the last 5 years. There was an 11% increase between 2015-16 and 2019-20. When looking at the data by program routes, there was a big increase in the alternative routes. 42.7% for university intern in 2015-16, between 2015-16 and 2019-20. 93% for district intern, for the district intern route, and a small increase of 2.6% for traditional routes between 2015-16 and 2019-20. Next, on agenda item page 14, and on the left panel of the presentation slide, shows the distribution of program completers by subject area. When looking at traditional route, about half of the program completers were prepared in elementary education, whereas alternative routes, more than 1/3 of program completers were prepared in special education. On agenda item page 15 and on the right panel of the presentation slide shows the distribution of program completers by academic major. More than half of program completers were prepared in the social sciences in both traditional and alternative routes. The next largest preparation group is the other academic major. The other includes non-teaching majors, combined majors, non-subject specific majors, and advanced degrees. Moving on to the annual goals section on page 19, table 9A of the agenda item, and on the presentation slide, displays the annual goals data for math, science, and special education. More than half of traditional programs met their goals in math and science. More than 60% of alternative university intern programs met their goals in special education, and more than 80% of alternative district intern programs met their goals in special education. Next, assessment information are available starting on page 31. Table 14A on page 34 of the agenda item also provides specific program completers pass rates by program route for 2019-20. The presentation slide displays the 5-year statewide pass rate trend for all exam types for each candidate group. In addition to the highlights provided so far, there are a lot more qualitative information in this report, such as the credential requirements, standards and criteria, more information about the alternative routes, program performance, and using criteria to determine low-performing institutions and how to assist them. There is also a section on teacher shortage and how the state plans to address it and other efforts the state is doing to improve the quality of the teaching workforce. Title II is a federal mandate with two important deadlines. Programs certify and submit their data every year by April 30th. Then the state submit its report to the U.S. Department of Education every year by October 31st. In this presentation, we highlighted key findings in the 2019-20 report, such as the increase of total enrollment, including program completers from the prior year. More than half of total candidates identified themselves as non-white, higher percentage of males enrolled in alternative programs versus the traditional program. Teachers prepared in subject area and academic major varied by route and segment, and assessment pass rates varied by route and segment. Every data element reported by the teacher preparation programs are displayed in the Commission's Title II dashboards. The 2019-20 data file is available in the appendix for researchers to do further analysis, as David mentioned. This provides quick access and transparency of the data. On behalf of the Commission, we want to thank all of the preparation programs in submitting their information on time so the state can achieve 100% response rate every year. This is an action item. Upon approval, staff will transmit a web-based version of the report to the U.S. Department of Education by October 31st, 2021. Thank you, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Lau. The data visualization was so helpful, in addition to the report that's available on the website. But thank you for your cadence and for the data visualization to help us understand the findings. We're now going to be open for public comment. Are there members of the public that would like to give a presentation? Please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Do we have a recording secretary? Are there any public comments?
Yes, we have one. Shilpa Ram, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
My name is Shilpa Ram, and I'm a senior staff attorney at Public Advocates. I'd like to thank the presenters and commission very much for this report and make 4 quick points, if I may. First, we continue to worry about the low enrollment rates of candidates of color in teacher preparation programs generally, and in traditional IHE programs in particular. According to Table 6A, Latino candidates comprise about 33%, Asian American candidates about 8%, and African American candidates about 3.5% of those enrolled in traditional IHE programs. In our quest to recruit more fully prepared teachers of color into California's classrooms who have a higher likelihood of retention, these enrollment percentages in traditional IHE programs are lower than we'd like to see. Second, as we see in Table 6G, there have been significant increases in enrollment in alternative IHE and alternative LEA routes. What this, of course, means is that we're seeing a gravitation towards programs that offer intern credentials. It's completely understandable that more candidates would opt to pursue credentialing options that may offer salaries, especially given the higher education costs that students, particularly students of color, incur. However, as research from the Learning Policy Institute shows, teacher retention begins with high-quality preparation, and increased numbers of teachers of color are pursuing alternative options. This doesn't bode particularly well for our goal of increasing and fostering teacher diversity over the long term. Third, I noticed that this year's item differed from last year's item in that there didn't appear to be tables highlighting program completion by route, as was the case on page 13 and 14 of October 2020's item. And it's helpful to understand the completion rates by traditional and alternative route to understand if there are any features or aspects of a given route that may facilitate or hinder completion. Based on the presentation that we just saw, it does seem this information will be available in the dashboard itself. And I was just wondering if it's going to be available to the public as well as to researchers. And finally, the report references several commission-administered grant programs that could help offset some of the costs incurred by teachers of color when pursuing credentialing programs. And at the June 2021 CTC meeting, we heard powerful testimony from teachers whose lives have been changed for the better by the classified program. And just wanted to encourage the commission to devote its energies not only to the administration of the grants and residency programs that have received such tremendous investments this year, but to the coordination processes needed to spread awareness and understanding of these grants and programs to maximize their use. Thank you again for your attention to this issue and for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Ms. Ram, for your comments and for your thorough read of the report. And are there any other public comments?
Harold Acord, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hi, everyone. My name is Harold Acord. I am testifying on behalf of the 300,000 members of the California Teachers Association. And I just wanted to share that I really actually hadn't planned on speaking on this item, but I did notice when looking at the item further that the pass rate for the RECA had gone from 94 to 85%. It's really gone down a lot, and I found that troubling. I'm concerned about our minority teacher candidates. I have some of the same concerns that the previous speaker had. And I think it's a good bit of data to look at when we start deciding how we're going to assess teacher candidates in the future for reading and their ability to teach reading in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Recording Secretary, other public comments?
Yes, the individual from Teach Plus, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning. This is Sarah Lillis, Executive Director for Teach Plus California. I just wanted to reinforce the comments from my colleague from Public Advocates and thank the Commission for all the work you've done on the data dashboard. I get overly excited about the data that is available to us now, but also hope that we can continue to do better to get more teachers of color or prospective teachers of color enrolled in these programs. I'm very hopeful about the investments the state has made that are removing barriers to entry and hopefully providing better support and development so teachers of color are staying in the profession as well. But I would just reiterate the need for more coordination, not only within the CTC, but with our partners at the Student Aid Commission and at the department to ensure that these investments are actually reaching the prospective teachers and the teachers that we want them to, and that we can do even more robust, meaningful evaluation of how those investments are impacting as a whole and individually, because I know we do a lot of individual evaluations of each of the grant programs, and I would love to see even more sort of comprehensive assessment of where we're having the biggest impact on both not only recruiting, but retaining and placing teachers in the communities that need them most. So very encouraged, excited to see the work that we've done, but also hope that there's an opportunity to think more intentionally about how we braid and look at the impact of these individual investments in the pipeline. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to call in with your comments. Recording Secretary, are there other public comments?
We do not have any additional requests for comment.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period for this item. Before the commissioners comment or have questions, does the CTC staff have, I think there was one question that was provided by public comments around the program completion, and that maybe confirm that it can be found on our data dashboard, or respond to any of the other comments or questions before we move to the commissioner discussion. Ms. Lau?
Yeah, I can respond. The data is available on our dashboards, and we do have the data available in the Excel, the appendix Excel as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on this item? I'm sure many of you share the same enthusiasm for the data that our previous Teach Plus talked about. Please feel free to raise your real hand or your virtual hand, whatever easier for you. Commissioner Gross.
I want to thank Commission staff for this detailed and very thorough report. I know that's a lot of work to get this information from our programs and to then analyze it. And you've presented it today in a way that's very digestible for us in this very kind of stressful time. I have a question, and it kind of goes back to our conversation earlier this morning about how do we do what's best next. And so I'm curious about the response rates regarding the annual goals. And so I kind of have two questions around that. Is there trend? Are there trends from the past 5 years in how our programs are achieving their goals for our special education, math, and science credentials? And then my second question there is, how do we follow up? How are we engaging with institutions about what do we need to do to meet more of our goals in these areas, since these are our candidates who we desperately need in our school systems, and we're seeing relatively low kind of goal completion rate for our IHE programs. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Gross. Who from the commission will take that question? Is that you, Mr.
Fifi? Fifi, can you talk about the longitudinal data? Do we have that in the dashboards?
The dashboards do not show a trend of the annual goals, but we have the data available for each year separately. So, but that's something that we can look into and maybe add into our Title II Trends dashboard page. We can look into that.
And then as for the goals themselves, those are set by each institution. So it's not like we have a state goal for the number of math teachers, new special ed teachers, new science teachers. Each program is setting goals for themselves that they're trying to meet. But we can look at what the trends are and discuss with programs during accreditation visits how they're setting their goals and what are their challenges in meeting those goals.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I think we absolutely want those folks in our classrooms, and so anything that we can do to support our institutes of higher education and our LEA preparation programs to recruit and have folks complete these programs is so impactful. So thank you for that.
I think I'll follow up from Commissioner Gross, and we are all excited to see the data and excited to look at the trends. But I think part of her question, and if it wasn't part of her question, it's part of my question, is how do we respond to the data now? What do we do with the data? We see the trends. We've heard concerns about the lack of people of color who are still not going to the teacher prep program, the trend towards interns, lots of really good data. And so now what do we do with that data at large or in general, however you all want to answer that question? If it's more specific, we also had comments around the grant programs like our credential program. So can you tell us a little bit about how staff use this data to drive our work? And I see Commissioner Sandy turned on the camera, so maybe she wants to address that, or is that someone else? I mean, Executive Director Sandy?
So we use this data along with data from the evaluations of the grant programs. And some of the things that we are doing based on that we are refining the requests for proposals for the new grant monies that were included in this year's budget. So based on what we've heard from past grantees and the evaluators, we're making changes as to what we're asking the grantees or the proposals to include. A second thing we are doing is we are trying to work more closely with other state agency partners on this. So we now meet regularly with the Commission for the California Student Aid Commission, so that we can help coordinate messages between how students can use teacher residency and Golden State teacher grants. And I think that's going to be one of our big goals for this year, is to help everyone understand how these funds can be braided together, because they are offered through different agencies, so it's not always clear to people. It's not always even clear to preparation programs how they can be used together. one of the things we're going to be looking for is what are going to be the results, from COVID. We had a lot of, especially testing and exam result requirements, pushed back into clear credential programs so people could get their provisional license or provisional credential without having passed some of these assessments. They will now need to do that in their clear program. And then this summer, the state budget bill, AB 130, added some great new alternatives to demonstrating basic skills and subject matter competence. And we believe that those in particular will help many more candidates of color come into the profession. So I would say there's a lot going on. The data is probably not going to be as comparable year to year just because of COVID. And we certainly are having a focus on how do we get more teachers of color.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I see the hands, and we'll go in this following order of Commissioner Grenoshire, Commissioner Jackson, and then Commissioner Michael De La Torre.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I wanted to comment on the question that you raised about how we use the data, and I'll reflect on my previous experiences as a dean at Cal State Long Beach, where we took these Title II reports and used them as a context in which to have conversations with our community and district partners, as well as our faculty and administrators. And so I want to assure the commission that higher ed programs can both contribute, of course, to these Title II data reports, but also use them at a system and a unit level to help us understand and plan for the needs of our regions as well as statewide needs. I also wanted just to appreciate David for his reminder about how we need to braid all these resources that our governor has invested in teacher preparation, and to communicate the variety of resources that are available to our candidates to meet our statewide goals to increase the diversity of our teachers, counselors, and leaders. So I just wanted to highlight and say thank you, David, for saying that.
Thank you, Commissioner Grenoshire, for that perspective as well and details. Commissioner Jackson?
Yes. First of all, thanks so much for this report. This report is really greatly tied into the work that my colleagues and myself work on at the department and the Teacher and Leader Policy Office. And I just want to highlight the work that we're doing on hopefully to help with, that kind of goes hand in hand with preparation. There's been, for the last year or so at the department, an advisory group on diversifying the teacher workforce. They've been meeting with all of the various stakeholders and various groups, asking about, not only talking about why we have this shortage and why we don't have people of color going into the teaching profession, but also talking about, solutions and what we can do. And our office started along with West Ed and the San Diego County Office of Ed personnel down there. We started a community of practice, and we had our first fall meeting where we had a presentation from the assistant superintendent from Fresno County Office of Ed, talking about a new initiative where they're going to start like in the elementary level and just really encourage Black students as well as other students of color about going into the profession. It's like, if no one ever talks to you about doing that, then of course you're going to find these other professions to go into, but really the value of going into the profession, the value of going into the profession and coming back into your community and serving in your community. And so I just wanted to say that these efforts are going on at the department. This is a great, initiative or emphasis from the superintendent of public instruction. It always has been. He sponsored he sponsored legislation that didn't go through and actually got folded into the educator effectiveness funds that did get signed off by the legislation. And what I want to do right now is to say that part of those funds, and we will be talking about this over and over again, is to really use part of those funds and think about this at the LEA level of diversifying the workforce and coming up with solutions that can help feed into these preparation programs. And hopefully we achieve what we know everyone keeps talking about, but somehow it's not taking hold. So I just wanted to just highlight a few things that are going on at the department, and I know them intimately because our office is involved in that.
And if I could add, there's a couple of other programs going on at the department that we're trying to partner with. One is with national board grants to try and get nationally board certified teachers into high need schools. And what we would like to do is to encourage our preparation programs to use those national board teachers as mentor teachers in preparation. I think that provides a great opportunity. Another one is, and I think CDE has the pre-K 16 regional workforce groups that will be starting up and looking at how do we get students thinking about their careers, and the commission staff will be involved saying, hey, education is a career, and we'll be working to help develop a career pathway for people who want to become a teacher.
Yeah, if I may, thank you, David, for mentioning the national board work, because that's also out of our office too.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Commissioner Jackson, for that perspective from the State Department and what's going on, and David for your addition. And again, Commissioner Grenishire for the perspective from higher ed. It's great to have this data just kind of ignite these kind of conversations and everyone share what they're doing at their respective institutions and organizations. So just want to give a big shout out again to the way you guys presented the data and the kind of comments and questions this generates. We have Commissioner De La Torre, then Commissioner Ed Edidia, and then we have Chair Sloan.
Thank you. I also want to give my appreciation for the data. I appreciate the transparency of this. It's very important to have this available to the public. My question is regarding the teacher preparation program routes. And I was just wondering if there was any objective indication that one path would be superior to another, as a concern was raised earlier.
It would really go back to what do you mean is superior. The ideal measure for us would be teacher performance in the classroom 2 to 3 years after program completion. And we don't have a common measure of that in California. So this is a great question and something we need to think about, how, using the data that we have and other data that might be available, how can we start to look at that question?
Thank you very much, because I think that would also help allay some of the fears that one path is superior to another. Thank you.
I think the one thing that we do see is that the alternative route pathways generally have additional options that meet the the schedule, for example, of people who are working and are want to change careers, that it's harder to do in a traditional IHE student teaching based program. So, I think that may be one of the ways that we look at it in terms of which pathways are helping which candidates become credentialed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Commissioner Heredia?
My question has been addressed.
Oh, wonderful. Wow. We're
Thank
so
you.
efficient. Okay. I saw that Commissioner Marquita Grenishire raise her hand again. Did you want to respond to one of the previous comments?
I did. Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I wanted to appreciate Commissioner De La Torre's question about which pathways are the preferred pathways. And I think it would be helpful for the Commission to provide some summaries for the commissioners to review regarding the impact of residency programs to both recruit and retain teachers of color. The Learning Policy Institute, the National Center on Teacher Residencies, there's some really rich national data that can help to inform our work moving forward. And given the state's huge investment in residencies this past year, I think this is an ideal time for us to really look at this seriously, to continue to work on that shared data system that we've been talking about for a number of years, so that in a couple of years we could better answer the questions that are being raised about what is the best route to ensure that we have the most diverse teaching force for our students in California. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Chair Sloan, and then we have our student liaison, Adriana Baez, and then we have Chair Brown. Commissioner Brown. I just gave you a promotion. Holy moly.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I'm going to respond a bit to some of these comments and also to what Commissioner Grenishire was just saying as well. So the California Teacher Education Research and Improvement Network, called CTERN, has been developing a statewide data system, and they're beginning to conduct analyses, and they did their first briefing on September 8th to look at some of the credential pathways in California, where teachers are going, how long they're staying, who's entering them. At the moment, our statewide data only allow us to look at certain pathways, so intern and traditional, as we call them, those earning a preliminary credential. CTERN looked at what credentials teacher candidates or prospective teachers first got, and they looked at whether they first got a preliminary credential, which means they went through a full teacher preparation program before becoming teacher of record, whether they got an intern credential, which means, as you know, they become interns and they're teachers of records while they're still preparing to teach and learning to teach. And the third thing they looked at was, did they come into the classroom with some sort of an emergency or waiver permit, the STIPs and PIPs and waivers. And what they found was that there are they looked at data from 2012 to 2017, teachers going into the profession. In that sample, prospective teachers who identified as Black or African American or Hispanic entered the classroom as teacher of record through what we consider more challenging licensure routes than their counterparts, either the interns where they're preparing on the job, or waivers and STIPs and PIPs where they're not necessarily preparing, but they are teacher of record. So they were more likely than new teachers, than other new teachers, to begin teaching on a permit, like a waiver emergency, or as an intern. And we also found that these two pathways had lower retention rates. So in other words, people entering on intern pathways, people entering on waivers and emergency permits left the profession faster than those who entered on a preliminary credential. Less than 40% of new teachers who began their career with a waiver or emergency permit went on to become fully prepared. In other words, went into preparation. And more than 40% of those individuals left the profession altogether by the end of year 3. So we are seeing in this report on tables 6A, the candidates of color who are entering these more challenging pathways. We are seeing on table 6G, the increase in the numbers of candidates going into alternative pathways. What we don't have in this report, because we don't report on this in Title II, are the emergency permit pathways, and those have been increasing. We have seen over time in our teacher supply report that all of these, the intern, the pathways in which candidates are put in classrooms before they're fully prepared are increasing dramatically with our teacher shortage. This is what happens. What we are not finding out now is the unfortunate outcome of that is that more of our teachers of color are entering the profession in those pathways, and more of the people who enter those pathways do not remain in teaching. This is really important for us because we are losing our candidates of color in pathways that aren't preparing them well to begin to teach. We don't have information yet statewide about our residency pathways and all of these spectacular investments we're making in pathways where we can ensure that our candidates are prepared prior to being teacher of record. This is really important work that we're doing. It is how we can be best at what's next. And it's important for us to keep our eye on that. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that additional information. Student Liaison Adriana Baez.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I just would like to say thank you for this opportunity to the Commission for presenting that data. I find that it is extremely relevant to somebody like me who is currently in a teaching program. So seeing that data was very enlightening, and it made me reflect on my own experience in the Pepperdine teaching program. And I would also like to thank those from the public who spoke. I actually am going to address one of the comments that was made by Harold Accord, and I just wanted to say that I agree when I saw that comment about the RICA score having that difference, and I just wanted to put out there that when we see that, looking at it through a critical literacy lens, what does that mean for our teachers who may be teachers of color or teachers who are coming from a minority background? What does that mean in regards to their English language education? Does that mean that through their program, they're not being provided the necessary tools to help pass the RICA exam? Does that mean that in regards to the literature and being able to assess student reading, that they're not getting the necessary support? And I think to a comment that Ms. Jackson made, where if no one ever talks to you about it, how are you going to be able to get to that point? And that was in regards to the teaching profession. And I feel the same way and express that same comment towards some of these exams, that you need to enable to become a teacher in California. So kind of just rethinking the RICA in itself, and maybe that is an obstacle that stops a lot of teachers who may be bilingual, who don't feel confident because English maybe is not their, maybe they don't feel confident enough to pass the RICA, and then they kind of rethink teaching as a career altogether. So I just wanted to point that out and kind of put that out there from the perspective of somebody who has taken the RICA exam already, and put that out there just in that regard, thinking about teachers of color and prospective teachers of color, that maybe this is another obstacle that they see in that regard. So thank you for letting me have the floor.
Thank you, and welcome to the Commission. We had Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Simons as our final comments. Commissioner Brown, are you still there? I knew she had to leave, so she may have. Okay, Commissioner Simons. You're on mute, David.
I've been doing this a year and a half. You'd think I would learn.
Not the only one, don't worry.
I owe one of our assistant superintendents a quarter because we make a bet every time we do that. We have to put a quarter in the jar. Okay, I just wanted to say that when we think of what is the best program, we need to think of it as in terms of it is the best for what. So I think if there's a way that we can also include accessibility when we're determining what is best, I think that's important. If our teacher candidates are limited to eating top ramen, that is probably not a sustainable way for us to be able to bring people from whose daddy and mommy can't afford to pay for their teaching credential. So I want us to have to keep that lens also in view. And I also had a question about RECA. A lot of us have been advocating for its demise for a long time. Where are we on that?
I believe that we will have an update on that in the legislative item.
Yes, we will have an update on that in the legislative item, but the quick hit is that legislation was successful in completely shifting the ways in which we will be looking at reading instructional competence in the future. That's a teaser, hoping that you all stick around for the ledge update after lunch to get the total answer. Thanks.
Great, thank you. With that, we are gonna conclude our discussion and make a motion, as this is an action item. Just gonna check one more time. Okay. So do I have a motion that the commission approve the 2019-2020 annual report card on the California Teacher Preparation Program? Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Gross. Thank you. Do I have a second? And I have a second by Commissioner De La Torre. Madam Secretary, or is there any other discussion? Okay. Madam Recording Secretary, will you call for the vote?
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Howick,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Terry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And thank you everyone for a really robust conversation. And thank you, Mr. Tegear and Ms. Lau, for your phone calls. For your I meant to thank the public for their phone calls and meant to thank the staff. So we're going to just take a really quick break. If folks can limit the break to 10 minutes at the very most, go ahead and turn your camera off and we will look for them to come back on. We have some time limitations here as we have a speaker. So 10 minutes for a break and we will move to 2A after that break. Chair Sloan or Executive Director Sandy, sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. All right, we'll see you guys in 10 minutes, maybe 9 at this point. I don't know, I think you guys should try out that fancy timer. Okay, commissioners, we're just waiting for a few more. I appreciate you all being so quick. We'll just wait for a couple more and then I know we lost Commissioner Brown. Okay. We're just missing Commissioner Cooney. Chair Sloan, should we go ahead and get started?
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. As you all know, we are now moving into item 2A, establishing multiple accessible pathways to a permit or credentialing authorizing service in state preschool and transitional kindergarten. This item is being presented by Phyllis Jacobson. This is an information item. Ms. Jacobson, will you please begin?
Ms. Jacobson,
Phyllis, your mic.
You're still on mute, Ms. Jacobson. So Shelby, I know that, Commissioner Martinez.
Phyllis, do you want to try to log out, relogging the Zoom?
Okay, it looks like Ms. Jacobson logged out, and we'll try again. There we go. Welcome, Ms. Jacobson. I think you're off mute now. Let's try.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I honestly don't know what happened. As soon as I started to speak, my whole entire screen dissolved into black. Let me try again. So good morning, Commissioners. California is making unprecedented investments in early childhood education. The governor's budget included support for expanding access to universal transitional kindergarten, or UTK, and the state preschool program, or PK, for all 3 and 4-year-olds. The recent master plan for early learning and care provides clear and compelling direction, along with goals and implementation plans for what it would take to truly serve all kids. But with great opportunity also comes great demand for qualified teachers to serve these children and families who will be enrolling in increasing numbers into the expanded TK and PK programs around the state. Actual and projected teacher shortage figures sound an alarm and point to the need for creative yet feasible approaches to addressing the need for early childhood teachers. Estimated shortages for implementing just UTK could be as high as between 8,000 to 10,000 teachers, according to a recent report from the Center for the Study of Child Care Employment. This agenda item responds to the shortage of ECE teachers by proposing to establish multiple accessible pathways to a permit or credential authoring service in state preschool and transitional kindergarten. The history of the Commission's efforts to build the infrastructure needed to transition to and support a competency-based system of ECE preparation and licensure is provided on pages 2 to 3 of the item, with details and links to prior agenda items and related reports in Appendix A. This prior work included participating in 4 years of collaborative efforts with multiple state and other agencies, including First 5 California, to move towards implementing the principles and practices recommended in the Transforming the Workforce Birth through 8 report and reviewing the scope of the ECE competencies from the California Department of Education, along with the other activities summarized in Appendix A. The work before us now focuses on opportunities to expand the pool of potential ECE teachers to draw from multiple subject credential holders as well as holders of a child development permit who are interested in teaching in PK to 3. This work builds on progress made to date on the master plan goals and direction and on the recommendations previously made to the Commission by the Child Development Permit Advisory Panel in 2017 and draws on a variety of resources to address the ECE teacher shortage. The current credentialing structure for ECE teachers includes the Child Development Permit, the Early Childhood Special Education Credential, the Multiple Subject Credential, the Multiple Subject Credential with 24 ECE units or the equivalent for transitional kindergarten apportionment purposes pursuant to Education Code Section 48,000, and the Early Childhood Specialist Credential. Education Code 48,000 specifies that credentialed teachers first assigned to teach TK after July 1 of 2015 must have by August 1 of 2023 either 24 units of early child education, child development, or both, or the equivalent as determined by the employer. Credentialed teachers first assigned to teach TK prior to July 1, 2015 are not subject to these additional requirements and are grandfathered, if you will. A description of each of these credentials and what they authorize is provided on pages 3 to 4 of the item. Within this array of existing credentials, the early childhood specialist credential in particular could be potentially revised and repurposed to address teaching in PK3 to meet workforce needs and to serve as a P3 credential. The master plan has called for establishing a P3 credential, and the existing ECE specialist credential could be that vehicle if appropriately revised and repurposed. The Commission has the authority to establish specialist credentials and has previously established the ECE specialist credential as an added authorization to an existing valid base credential. Revising the existing ECE specialist credential to focus on the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for successful teaching in PK3, including the full range of appropriate early childhood principles and practices, supporting dual language learners and children and families, social, emotional, mental, and physical health, and developmentally appropriate pedagogy, could allow this credential to serve as a bridge linking the child development permit and the multiple subject credential workforce, and making both groups of teachers available to serve in TK. This approach could allow those holding a child development teacher or higher level permit with a bachelor's degree to be prepared and authorized to teach in a PK3 setting, including TK. Multiple subject credential holders could add the ECE specialist credential by completing 24 units of ECE coursework or the equivalent, as specified in Education Code 48,000. That would assure that these teachers are knowledgeable of and implementing developmentally appropriate practices to support all children and their families. Title V regulations would need to be amended to include teaching in an ECE setting and to establish a framework for the new PK3 grade band. The revised ECE specialist credential would remain an added authorization to a base credential and focus on the P3 grade span. If the Commission were to move forward with this approach, the eligible base credentials for the revised ECE specialist could include both a multiple subject credential and a child development permit at the teacher or higher level for those who also have a bachelor's degree. Recognizing that the preparation for the multiple subject credential and for the child development permit have much in common, but also differ in significant ways, the ECE specialist credential would become a bridge between these two pathways. The Commission would need to establish a core set of requirements for the ECE specialist credential and determine the options for each pathway to meet these requirements. Potential key requirements for the revised ECE specialist are provided on page 5 of the item, and these include a base credential, that could be the multiple subject credential or child development permit at the teacher or higher level, a bachelor's degree or higher, professional preparation and subject matter competence in early childhood education, curriculum, and pedagogy, as we have just described it a few moments ago, through grade 3 for the child development permit holder, and 24 units of child development early childhood education for the multiple subject credential holder, including developmentally appropriate practices for early learning. Several commenters indicated that it would be important not to overlook other dimensions of preparation, such as, for example, social emotional learning. Staff assure the Commission, as well as stakeholders, that the full range of preparation in these areas would be included in ECE pedagogy, and that the content of this preparation would be more explicitly spelled out should the Commission move forward with the concept of a revised ECE specialist credential, as presented in the item. And also completion of a teaching performance assessment that includes a focus on literacy development for both pathways. The chart on page 6 to 7 of the item further explains how each of the proposed requirements for the specialist credential might be met by two groups of teachers, the multiple subject credential holders and the child development permit holders. The Commission might also want to consider micro-credentialing and other creative approaches for helping candidates meet requirements that the Commission may establish for the ECE specialist credential, as has also been suggested by some commenters. To help prospective ECE specialist credential candidates who need to complete degrees and/or teacher preparation, several competitive grant programs administered by the Commission that LEAs can apply for, LEAs being local education agencies that can apply for, that could potentially support these candidates are the Classified School Employee Teacher Credentialing Program and the Teacher Residency Grant Program. And in addition, the Golden State Teacher Grant Program may also be helpful to individual candidates. Institutions of higher education might also provide focused preparation to both groups of ECE teacher candidates by considering establishing new or modified programs leading to the ECE specialist credential, expanding residency programs to include ECE specialist credential candidates, and developing other appropriate degree and/or preparation pathways and options. These are just some examples of how higher education could potentially contribute to developing the pool of available PK3 teachers. In addition to a revised and repurposed ECE specialist credential, the child development permit structure also needs to be updated to reflect the changing landscape of early childhood workforce needs. The current permit structure is provided in Appendix B, and the recommendations made by the Child Development Advisory Panel in Appendix C. At the time these recommendations were presented to the Commission in 2017, they were tabled and no action was taken for several reasons, including the potential effects on ECE teacher supply and the ability of employers to staff ECE programs, the potential effects on compensation for these positions, the desire of some stakeholders to strengthen the proposed requirements, and the pending direction from the state's master plan for early learning and care, which at that time was being conceptualized but had not yet begun work. Given the complexity of these factors, the Commission tabled the recommendations at that time and instead moved forward with building components for a competency-based system of ECE preparation and licensure. These included developing and adopting ECE teaching performance expectations, which were based in the Transforming the Workforce Birth through 8 competencies and the CDE Early Learning Foundations, among other documents, and also program guidelines for preparers of the early childhood workforce, both in 2019, while awaiting the publication of the master plan in December of 2020. It may be time now to reflect on those 2017 Permit Advisory Panel recommendations in light of the master plan, the advent of UPK, and the PDGR work that has been undertaken in the meanwhile. Potential changes to the permit structure should both support the direction from the master plan relating to workforce development and meet the changing needs of the state preschool program along with implementation of UTK. So staff recommends, therefore, that the Commission discuss these prudential issues and options as described in this item and provide feedback and direction to staff. In terms of next steps and pending further direction from the Commission, staff will be continuing to work with the California Department of Education as it prepares for full implementation of UPK, along with continuing collaborative work with a variety of state agencies also implementing provisions of the master plan. Staff are also planning to facilitate a survey of local education agency employers during fall of 2021 regarding how employers are currently implementing the provisions of Education Code Section 48,000 concerning staffing TK classrooms. Staff would also assist in establishing a broadly representative work group to further inform the development of a credential structure for early childhood education that incorporates multiple pathways and options for service in transitional kindergarten and the state preschool program. This group may also review the 2017 recommendations from the Permit Advisory Panel and adjust these recommendations as needed to adapt the changing context for early childhood education in California. The membership of this group would include some representatives from the Child Development Advisory Panel, early childhood education practitioners and employers, faculty from 2- and 4-year child development and ECE programs, representatives from the 2 PDGR design teams, multiple subject practitioners, multiple subject teacher preparation programs, and other appropriate stakeholders. Staff will also continue to regularly update the Commission on all of this work. This concludes the staff item presentation. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Dr. Linda Darling-Hammond, President of the State Board of Education, for her remarks.
Thank you, Phyllis. It's great to see you, and it's great to see all the Commission members. I miss being at the table. but I watch from afar, and you're doing a great job. I am now at the State Board of Education, and this is a critically important connection point between, the work that we do in the Department of Education, State Board, and the California Teacher Credentialing Commission. So I'm excited that we have the opportunity to think together about it. Many, many years ago, I co-founded a preschool and daycare center to provide developmentally appropriate options for my own children and those of others in a community that did not have them. That challenge of finding developmentally appropriate, supportive early childhood education is widespread. As many of you know, if you are a mother or a grandmother or a grandfather or a father or an uncle or anything else, that this has really been an issue across the country and in California. In the years since then, that sense of urgency has been really confirmed by the research, which has found that getting a high quality early childhood education that is developmentally appropriate and offered by well-qualified staff who understand.
Dr. Dillingham, we lost you to mute.
How about that? Is that better?
Yes, you're back.
That getting that kind of developmentally appropriate education offered by well-qualified educators has an enormous supportive effect on both learning and achievement, and also on reducing opportunity gaps and achievement gaps. So this is an amazing opportunity in California to begin the process of instantiating universal pre-K. This is an opportunity that other states have already taken up in many cases across the country, so we can learn some things from their efforts as well. And I just want to point out that in addition to the fact that universal TK for all 4-year-olds is on the table and will be rolled out over the next several years, the Congress right now is doing a budget reconciliation bill, which has substantial funding in it, and some substantial funding will come out of it for universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds, federally funded. And most of the money in pre-K comes from the federal government. So this is going to be another piece of the puzzle for us in California. There are going to be expectations for credentialing for the people who work in those federally funded programs. So we really want to get ahead of the curve and think about how to build this system now so that we're not, jerry-rigging things later. So I really strongly endorse this item that the staff has put together with the help of all the advisory commissions and the conversations that the commission has been having. The item really proposes an elegant solution to a set of challenges that we face. And I'm quoting another person who was in an earlier meeting this week to the point about elegance. It's really important that we figure out how to meet this very extraordinary supply in ways that provide multiple pathways and also provide the very important knowledge base and expertise that people need to work effectively with young children in this space. So building up from the early childhood workforce by adding to the highest child development permit, the additional knowledge and skills that would be needed for TK and into the primary grades, helping those who have reached from multiple subject credentials to TK with the 24 units that are required to receive the state allotment, and articulating that knowledge base in a way that people can come to it from upper grades and from lower ages, and have a shared expertise for that period of time, and do that in ways that are manageable and efficient for the individuals, taking advantage, of course, of all of the new incentives that are on the table, will be very, very important. I think that the idea of having these sort of stackable permits from early childhood could be extraordinarily productive, because in two ways. One, the earlier commission's task force on this identified ways that we can begin to articulate the actual knowledge base that should be in those units. You know, we have several sets of units that need to be accomplished to move through that permit system, but they were not particularly well articulated in terms of what people should learn and how they should relate to each other. So articulating the knowledge base, helping people access it, allowing them to stack up those permits and have a career ladder that they are pursuing, and then articulating what is needed to get to the last piece of it, which is this specialist credential, will really allow folks, many folks, to make that pathway in. And it will also make it clear what we can do to support the learning of multiple subject teachers who would be coming into the early childhood space. So I think that that's a really wonderful idea. We've already got from earlier work that the commission did some substantive framework to build on there. And we can take advantage of the folks who will want to come in. I will note as well that while there's this very, very substantial demand, which will be increased when the federal expectations come online, we have also had in many communities shortages of multiple subjects teachers. So we need to be building our supply across the board. This is something where we want to take advantage of the existing resources that are on the table, which are identified as in number. You know, it's a very substantial body of resources. There's additional resources on the table for early childhood learning subsidies for providers that we'll want to tackle. And then we're going to really need to work with the provider community, with the community colleges, the CSUs and UCs, the private and independent colleges, to begin to offer the coursework in ways that are highly accessible. This may also involve county offices and others, so that we are thinking about both programs that people can come into that are holistic, and also ways to get pieces of the puzzle in easily accessible ways. I just want to end my comments with a reference to what I saw happening in New Jersey some years ago. New Jersey put into its school finance reforms the expectation for high quality preschool for 3 and 4 year olds in all of the highest need districts that were part of that litigation. And within 5 years, they went from a workforce that was 90% of whom were uncredentialed for that work to a workforce in which 90% were credentialed for that work. They offered subsidies, they offered coursework, they defined what was needed. They worked with providers to be sure that it could be made available in a variety of forms, online and in person, in the summers and during the school years. This can be done. And I think the commission is taking some very important first steps towards a high quality, accessible pathway to a well-qualified early childhood workforce that will also hopefully help us have a learning trajectory for young people between the ages of 3 and 3rd grade. So there's a lot of benefits to be had here if we do this thoughtfully and purposefully and well.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for that context, the possibilities, and encouraging us to remain proactive as we approach this credential. So it's always great to see you, State Board President Linda Darling-Hammond. Thank you, and we will move to public comments. Again, thank you, Ms. Jackson, also for your presentation and dealing with the challenges of the mute function and technology as we continue in our Zoom world. We'll now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. As a reminder, we will have, you see that blue sky timer? We will time the public comments. You will be limited to 90 minutes so we can maximize the number of folks. 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Yeah, no 90 minutes, not even me. 90 seconds so that we can maximize the number of people who speak. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Yes, first is Denise Kennedy. Please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Thank you so very much. And I probably could take 90 minutes, but I promise I will not. I wanted to extend Commissioner Brown's comment and also Dr. Darlene Hammond's comments. And although we understand there's a high need immediately, we propose that as a long-term solution that we strongly advocate for future California P3 credential that is a standalone credential and not an added authorization or a specialist credential. California's P3 credential development should be grounded in what is best for children and guided by state and national early childhood education and transforming the workforce birth through 8 research and practice. Credentialed P3 teachers must be prepared for quality teaching across the early childhood years. And this includes infant toddlers, preschool, TK, and K through 3rd grades. And we think the credential should include several things, such as knowledge and skills of child development and developmentally appropriate practice, developmental child assessments, working with families and communities towards genuine engagement, setting up learning environments and experiences that build on children's individual and family cultures, and maintaining home languages for dual language and multi-language learners. Also, just a last comment, if I may, the pathway that's proposed for the multiple subject credential potentially could have a TK teacher with not one course on child development or early childhood education. The way it's proposed with a lot of the options, a TK teacher would have no knowledge of early childhood education. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kennedy, and appreciate you following the timeline, time limitations. Recording secretary, do we have other speakers?
Yes, we do. Mary Jane McGuire Fong, please unmute your microphone and share your comment. Is she not there?
See anything new on the screen?
Okay, we'll go to the next, and if she comes back.
Great.
Next is Donna Cecil. Please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning. My name is Donna Cecil, and I am speaking as a representative of both Tri-C-ECE and PEACH. I want to thank the Commission on Teacher Credentialing for giving me an opportunity to comment on 2A. We at Tri-C-ECE and PEACH recognize the urgency to create emergency pathways to meet the immediate need for additional ECE teachers to serve children in both CSPP and TK programs. While the ECE specialist credential may provide an emergency bridge to meet the immediate need for teachers, it should not serve as a permanent solution. A 2015 legislative provision required TK teachers to complete 24 units of early childhood education or child development. However, this requirement could be waived by their LEA. This legislative loophole severely weakens the shared professional knowledge base and skills for current TK teachers. We do not want to see a similar loophole offered as currently proposed on page 2A6. A RAND Corporation study in 2012 concluded that early childhood programs and primary grades teaching skills are different than those needed in higher grades. We firmly believe and strongly recommend a new ECE credential that would be developed over the next 2 years with input from California higher education institution and ECE stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Right at time. Recording secretary. Next.
Danette Brown, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. Danette Brown, and I'm speaking on behalf of the California Teachers Association. At a conceptual level, this is an innovative solution to major education preparation and hiring challenge. Expanding TK and increasing educational supports for state preschool programs is a great opportunity for our youngest students. We believe that it's crucial to provide our youngest learners with the best prepared educators using multiple pathways with parallel rigor. With that said, we recognize that there are many moving parts and overlapping concepts, and this makes having a transparent and inclusive stakeholder engagement and information gathering process extremely critical. So toward that end, we would urge that the Commission communicate the full data collection, engagement, and development process up front. And like any good design process, focus on understanding the needs of your end users, the child development permit, multiple subject holders, teacher candidates, et cetera, and seek their feedback early and often. As I previously stated, we know this is extremely complex. We would urge the Commission to avoid confusion by being very precise with terminology like credentials, base credentials, stackable credentials, micro credentials, licenses, permits, clinical practices, field experiences, oh my. So having said that, we really look forward to this exciting work and partnering with the Commission to help develop the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, others?
Anupama Joshi, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hi, my name is Anupama Joshi, and I'm a member of the faculty at California State University, Dominguez Hills. I would like to thank the CDC staff for taking on the especially challenging task of beginning to articulate a map that can accommodate various streams of teacher preparation for preschool teaching. In addition, the addition of early childhood to K-12 education presents us an opportunity to consider the core lesson from research on quality early childhood education, which is arguably relevant for all education. That lesson is that developmentally responsive curriculum and practices support learning and help teachers craft effective strategies and content. My plea to the Commission is this: please explicitly encourage all teachers, irrespective of the grade level, to learn about the developmental needs and characteristics of infants, children, and adolescents. Acquiring this knowledge as part of their preparation will help them as teachers as well as their students. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Recording Secretary, others?
Sandra Moe, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello. I am speaking from a perspective of a child development permit verification of completion faculty at Rio Hondo College and Peach co-lead of the child development permit work group. So my comments are regarding Appendix C, the 2017 advisory panel work on the child development permit revisions on page 13 of the agenda item. And I'm going to focus on three things, if I have time. The first thing is a change in the child development permit renewal process from 105 professional growth hours in 5 years, or about 21 hours per year, to 180 hours in 5 years, would require 75 more hours total in 5 years and 36 hours per year. This hour change would be difficult to accomplish for child development permit holders that currently work in the field. Also, renewal of this permit is required for the child development permit holder to maintain their employment. I guess I'll just address two. Completely replacing the work experience requirements of the master teacher, site supervisor, and program director permit levels for 210 clinical practice experiences discounts the value of direct experience in supervising staff. And so I would encourage you to consider these as you consider the final permit revisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, another?
Kelly Reynolds, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Kelly Reynolds, Senior Policy Analyst for Early Edge California. Early Edge appreciates the Commission for wanting this discussion on early learning teacher pathways. This is an opportunity to align requirements and developmentally appropriate practices to improve pathways to becoming an early learning educator and develop a long-term vision for early learning and care in California. We support the Commission's idea of creating multiple pathways to recruit teachers, including credentialed teachers interested in ECE and child development permit teachers who have a BA and teach 4-year-olds. As the Commission begins to explore the creation of an ECE Specialist Bridge Credential, we urge it to consider focusing on streamlining processes and integrating systems. Each requirement should be carefully considered to ensure that it works to increase quality early learning experiences for children while also increasing the number of well-prepared teachers without adding burdensome requirements. We want to ensure that subject matter included in the credential promotes developmentally appropriate practices to best meet the needs of our young learners. We support the inclusion of educator competencies that support biliteracy and dual language learners. We also support the Commission's idea to take teachers' prior experience into consideration and build upon that foundation to prepare them to serve as effective P3 teachers. As we consider multiple ECE pathways, we need to ensure that revisions to a credential work to address inequities in compensation and ensure parity amongst educators. Lastly, Early Ed would like to be considered as a potential stakeholder member of the ECE work group. Thank you for opening this discussion today and for the Commission's important work in supporting early learning teacher preparation.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Recording Secretary, do we have another comment?
Jan Fish, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Yes, hello, I'm Jan Fish. I am co-lead of PEACH, Professor Emerita at Cal State Northridge, and a member of the coordinating team of the Cal ECE BACs. We first want to applaud item 2A's plan to authorize highly qualified baccalaureate holding early childhood education teachers to teach in TK. This acknowledges that ECE-centric knowledge and skills are required for TK, and that this shared knowledge base needs to be developed between ECE teachers and multiple subject credential holders, as noted by State Board of Education President Dr. Darling Hammond earlier. In addition, we decry the proposed alternatives for multiple subject credential teachers to demonstrate their expertise by simply having taught in TK or TK. And we also want to recognize that our early childhood workforce and students in the pipeline are nearly twice as diverse as those students in multiple subjects credential pathways and in the field. And to close, what we have left out of item 2A and our day's discussion is 0 to 3. And with 0 to 3, we've lost the voice of ECE prep in child and family relationships, home language as an asset critical to initial language acquisition and literacy development, and English language proficiency outcomes, as well as home language proficiency.
Thank you, Dr. Fish. We are at time. Recording Secretary, can we move to another public comment?
Yes, Elena Montoya, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hi, I'm Elena Montoya. I'm a Senior Research and Policy Associate with the Center for the Study of Childcare Employment at UC Berkeley. We're pleased that the Commission is considering an ECE credential and multiple pathways to obtain it. We have provided written comments addressing details of the proposal. While not central to today's discussion, we do know that there's a broader discussion happening in the ECE field about the tension between opening pathways for ECE educators to TK jobs and the repercussions for the rest of the ECE system. And we would like to address that in our comments today. From a workforce perspective, it is likely that creating paths for early educators to become TK teachers, which are good jobs with living wages and benefits, will cause a drain of teachers from the rest of the system. The reality is that this could both create life-changing opportunities for many early educators who are largely women of color and among the lowest paid workers in California, and at the same time, further destabilize an already fragile ECE system. But we caution against destabilization being an argument to limit the scope of pathways. The solution is not to withhold good jobs from ECE teachers, but for state leaders to address the entirety of the ECE system, creating good jobs and stable programs throughout. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you for taking the time. Recording Secretary, are there other public comments?
Tony Isaacs, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Thank you, Commissioners. As CTC considers an early childhood credential, Peach urges you to build on the existing strengths of the early childhood higher ed preparation programs across California's 4 higher education sectors. Our state has a sophisticated and well-developed professional early childhood field and a robust early childhood system of professional preparation programs at higher education levels. California has over 103 community colleges offering child development and associate degrees, 22 CSUs offering ECE and CD with baccalaureate and graduate works, and UC and private universities with baccalaureate and graduate programs. Many of our programs serve high populations of students of color. If an early childhood credential needs to fit into the existing structure, we recommend the pathways be based on a 2+2+1, so 2 years community college, 2 years BA, and 1 year credential, or a 4+1 model. If we could be creative, we would be happy to discuss other options. We highly recommend that options for an early childhood credential build upon an early childhood associate degree and child development baccalaureate as pathways to meet the subject matter competence posed by the CTC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, do we have another public comment?
Helen Davis, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Helen Davis. I'm a Peach Workgroup co-lead, and I am the Program Director of Early Care and Education Preparation Programs at UCLA Extension. The solution for our urgent workforce problem should maintain clear standards of competence both for teaching 3 to 5-year-olds and for teaching grades K to 3. We highly recommend that the temporary solutions to the emergency teaching approvals be limited to 1 to 2 years, and that during this time we develop a standalone P3 credential rather than an added authorization. We appreciate the acknowledgement in 2A that ECE teachers holding a teacher-level child development permit and a baccalaureate degree have the credential appropriate subject matter competence to qualify to teach in P to 3, as well as in state preschool and transitional kindergarten. However, 2A does not require the appropriate standard of competence from multiple subjects credential holders to teach 3 to 5-year-olds. This is a significant concern for us since subject matter competence relies on developmental theory, which is not a core part of the multiple subjects training. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, other comments?
Randy Wolf, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Thank you. First, let me commend you on this bold effort to confront an intransigent and contentious issue. I am the Executive Director of Early Care and Education Pathways to Success and currently working with early educator apprenticeships in 10 counties. Previously, I was a tenured professor for 10 years in Chicago. My ECE students earned BA degrees, a birth to grade 3 teaching credential, and a specialization in working with children with special needs and dual language learners. And they did so in 4 years without an extra credential year. So I want to make 2 comments I feel particularly qualified to elevate. Number 1, The report encourages residency models and intern pathways, but not apprenticeships. This is a costly omission because it means we miss out on federal and state initiatives and sustainable funding specifically available to apprenticeship programs. More importantly, it means we're denying aspiring pre-K to grade 12 teachers access to innovative, paid teacher preparation pathways with a demonstrated capacity to maintain the diversity of the ECE workforce. Number two, to address the current crisis, the bridge credential may be the best option, but long-term, we need an ECE credential. Early educators warrant targeted professional preparation on par with what is offered to other educators. Without it, early educators will always be treated as second-class citizens and will never achieve pay parity with K-12 peers because their academic preparation will be viewed as inferior. To be clear, the credential is not essential in and of itself, but as long as credentials are the holy grail of teacher preparation, early educators deserve to play by the same rules and reap the same benefits. Thank you very much.
Recording Secretary, next speaker.
The individual from Teach Plus, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Chair Sloan and Commissioners. I'm Sarah Lillis, Executive Director of Teach Plus California. I'm here representing Teach Plus and our current Teach Plus policy fellows, which include California early childhood educators with decades of experience. We appreciate the thoughtful way that the Commission staff have explored the complexities of the need for additional well-prepared early childhood educators that has arisen from the exciting state investments in expanding transitional kindergarten and the state preschool program. These exciting developments have presented the need for urgent action, as well as the thoughtful medium and long-term strategies to ensure that we have a teaching workforce that will be essential to ensure that this expansion realizes its transformative potential. As an organization, we are committed to working toward a more diverse P-12 teacher workforce. Unlike the K-12 system, the ECE workforce is as diverse and multilingual as the children they serve. We know that establishing a more diverse workforce is also a priority for the CTC in the state, so we're encouraged that the CTC is exploring multiple pathways for this diverse ECE workforce to be lead teachers in a TK classroom. California has many well-prepared and highly qualified educators working in a variety of settings in the early learning space. It'll be important for the Commission to consider how to develop these multiple on-ramps and eliminate structural barriers for this group of educators to enter the workforce. And this may include incentives and funding. At the same time, we recognize there is an urgent need to provide well-supported teachers to expanded TK classrooms. They may not be met by the longer-term strategies outlined in this item. We ask the Commission to also explore if there are systems of support or professional learning that the state can help shape so that early childhood teachers with demonstrated expertise or multiple subject teachers who may not meet all the credentialing requirements can serve in our new TK classrooms.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. My apologies that we have to interrupt to keep on time. Recording Secretary, other comments?
Tony Ayala, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Tony Ayala, and I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for California Community College Early Childhood Educators, as well as a PEACH Steering Committee member and Faculty of Child Development Studies at Solano Community College. As California continues to shift its attention towards early care and education, the work of the Commission will also be focusing a large amount of its time navigating permits and credentials for teachers working with children birth through third grade. Because of this, there is an urgent need to have an early childhood education or child development higher education faculty as a voting member on the Commission. As I understand it, the composition of this Commission must be legislated, but until such a time a change can be made, we urge the Commission to consider appointing an ECE or child development higher education faculty to the public member position on the Committee of Credentials. I also want to encourage all Commission members, as well as the public, to take the time to read the written comments provided by PEACH. PEACH is a cross-collaborative of higher education focusing on early childhood, including community colleges, CSUs, UCs, and privates. As a collective group, we have intricate knowledge of what it means to support the workforce in obtaining permits, credentials, and degrees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, are there other public comments?
Ayumi Nagase, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Thank you. I am Assistant Professor in Early Childhood Studies at Sonoma State University.
I am speaking as a member of the statewide faculty group for child development and early childhood baccalaureate programs. This group also submitted a written comment. First, I would like to extend my appreciation to the Commission, your efforts to address the teacher shortage for the early years. However, we would like the proposed plan to fully address the very diverse backgrounds of children and families in California and opportunity gaps, as Dr. Darling Hammond discussed earlier. We would like the Commission to take a more aggressive approach to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion to the teaching workforce, especially by having the proposed plan include community college and CSU students in child development and early childhood. For instance, at Cal Poly Pomona, 90% of the students in early childhood studies are students of color. This is particularly important. Less than 40% of the current TK-12 teachers are people of color, whereas 70% of center-based early childhood teachers are people of color. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you for taking the time. Recording Secretary, do we have other public comments?
Jessica Sacco, please unmute your microphone and show your comment.
Jessica Sacco on behalf of Children Now. I would refer you to the written comments that we submitted on this item. In addition, I would like to reframe our conversation a little bit and start by thinking about what kids need and what we want for them. What we want is the best start that they can get on their educational journey that honors the assets they bring to the classroom and meets them where they are when they enter it. In order to have this best start, we need to have high quality curriculum, which is of course under the purview of CDE, as well as teachers well prepared to create the environment and provide the high quality learning experiences so kids can thrive and get the best start that they can have. To that end, I would urge the Commission to consider how they can fully embrace the full scope and preparation and experience of the existing early childhood workforce as they work to create a credentialing authorization for transitional kindergarten classrooms. To use caution and always keep diversity, equity, inclusion in mind as this work progresses, and ensure and provide guidance and information to teacher preparation programs so that they can make sure to provide coursework that is accessible to the diverse and multi-language speakers that is our early childhood workforce. To that end, I also encourage the Commission to collaborate with the CDE, who is charged with dispensing $100 million in early education PD grants to districts to support professional development for teachers in this space. Thank you.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, do you have other public comments?
Nancy Hurlbut, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hi, I'm a faculty member at Cal Poly Pomona, and I'm speaking for the California Early Childhood BACs. We're an informal statewide group of faculty from baccalaureate programs in early childhood and child development. Our departments include specific pathways for early childhood education and elementary teacher ed. We understand the need to act quickly to meet the teacher shortage, and I argue our programs have a significant number of majors to meet this shortage, and many of them are students of color. We appreciate the table and the key requirements. We have some concerns which we laid out in our written document. One that I want to underscore is that the child development early childhood baccalaureate programs have a long history of interdisciplinary preparation for teachers and for subject matters. We have waivers, we have ITIP programs, etc. We argue that child development early childhood programs with their interdisciplinary history should be seen as an alternative pathway to CBEST as the liberal studies programs are. We further argue that doing this will create a large pool of extremely well-qualified teachers in P3 who know how to support children, how to work with families, etc., which 2A indicates multiple subject teachers do not lack. And we look forward to working with CTC on developing these pathways. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Recording Secretary, do we have other public comments?
Mary Jane McGuire Fong, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello, I hope you can hear me this time.
We can.
Thank you. I'm a longtime early childhood educator and professor emerita from American River College, one of California's community colleges. I also served on the Child Development Advisory Committee mentioned in this agenda item. I want to comment on the age range of the proposed early childhood education credential. It's important to understand that when we're talking about TK and state preschool, we're talking about 3 and 4-year-olds only. And the focus of any new early childhood credential or bridge pathway should be 0 to 8. That is the traditional definition of the early childhood education field. It needs to be cost effective. It needs to be coherent. And so to do that, it needs to be 0 to 8. The research is very clear on this. Children do what can arguably be considered their most robust and enduring learning during the first 3 years. So they need to be supported by well-prepared early childhood educators. Whether you call a service childcare or preschool is beside the point. So please define carefully what you mean by P through 3. P refers to preschool. That's children before kindergarten. Please assure that any new credential prepares teachers to work across the full early childhood education curriculum, birth to 8. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for calling in again. Recording Secretary, do we have other comments?
Regina Lamorel, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Regina, if you can unmute your microphone. We see that you're on the line. We may need to come back to Regina.
We'll come back. Next speaker is Soo-Young Jang. Please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Soo-Young Jang, an assistant professor at Cal Poly Pomona. I would like to share my experience as a former educator from Canada. The biggest province in Canada, Ontario, has been implementing full-day kindergarten programs for 4- and 5-year-old children since 2014. Recognizing the importance of utilizing early childhood pedagogies in these programs, the province adopted a co-teaching model where a teacher with elementary education background works with an early child educator. Studies on these programs have found that teachers with elementary education background benefit from working with early child educators who have a strong foundation in early child theories, research, and pedagogies. Young children do not learn according to traditional school subjects, but learn in a very holistic way. Early child educators are knowledgeable and skillful in scaffolding children's learning and fostering their development of multiple domains using a wide range of pedagogical approaches. The lesson we can learn from the full-day kindergartens in Ontario, Canada, would be to center early childhood teachers in the universal preschools in California to best optimize our youngest citizens' learning and development. Thank you for your time to listen to us.
Thank you for your public comments. Shall we try to return to Regina, Madam Secretary?
Regina Lamorel, if you're there, please unmute your microphone and share your comment. Let's move on to the next one. Jocelyn Tucker, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Thank you, and thank you.
We just lost Jocelyn.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Ms. Tucker. Please go forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking. Here we go again. Okay,
Can you try it again, please?
Yeah. I have been in the field for more than 20 years, and I'm not representing anybody but myself as a practitioner. I'm on vacation this week. This is the only reason I have, only chance I have to call in, because my colleagues are in programs working with children right now. And so I would ask the commission to have further meetings or future meetings at a time when people who you're talking about can actually come on and make comments, because we're all working with children typically. I noticed that you referenced a report from UC Berkeley about the need for teachers, but you didn't make any more comments about that report that said California's early ed program, early ed staff are ready and prepared to work in TK programs. So it's not that we're not prepared, it's that there's not enough of us. And rarely does making entry into a program, it rarely is that a way to increase the numbers. And so I would ask you to work more with people like myself who are actually working in programs, get more comments from teachers and directors and those who are actually in the field in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. Recording Secretary, other comments?
We have no additional comments. We'd like to give Regina Lamoureux an opportunity to speak if she still would like to speak. If she could raise her hand, her virtual hand, and let us know if she would still like to speak, please. We are seeing no additional requests for public comment. Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Recording Secretary, for managing that and the timer, and us giving a little bit more time in case there's one other person or the other person can call back in. But meanwhile,
we do have one individual. The individual calling from the number that ends in 1293. Please unmute your telephone and show your comment.
You can press *6 to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Sorry for all the confusion here. I've had tech issues here.
Well, appreciate your perseverance.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this issue. We shouldn't squander the development and education of our youngest children by creating a credential structure that does not consider at its core the effects on brain development and learning. Preschoolers and early school agers are different stages of development, and train educators that understand their unique developmental needs, and not just people who can teach or had years in teaching profession should be considered. That's about service to a job, not about excellence in performance of specific developmental stages. Equivalency should be recent and relevant and not just a rubber stamp to get people qualified. Relationships are at the forefront of brain development and learning, and yet little of what I saw specifically addresses this. I support the development of an early learning credential if it is specifically designed for and about the developing brains of preschoolers or early school agers, and not just a push-down copy of credentials of older children. The absence of voting representatives from higher education on the commission makes me nervous that the science of education, specifically what has been learned the last 20 years about social emotional development and cognitive development, may not be included. Educators are in the brain building business, and basic understanding and consideration of these principles are paramount in making sure that we do not continue the errors, the previous errors in education. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully we'll include brain development and learning in our pursuit of an early learning credential. Thank you.
Thank you. And before you leave, can you just for the record state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Dr. Regina Morel from Santiago Canyon College, and I'm representing Peach and Tri-C ECE.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for your perseverance and staying within our time limitations, given all the challenges you had. Recording Secretary, are there any other comments?
We have a comment from Harpreet Kaur. Please unmute your microphone.
Yes. Hello, my name is Harpreet. I'm sorry, I'm calling from my car, and I teach in a preschool. I just have a question. I will be going in my credentialing field starting next semester. So my question is this, like, do I ask for P to third grade credential, or do I need to go with the other credentials that are been getting offered? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we want to take the questions later, Executive Director Sandy, or address any questions at this moment?
We can answer that one just very quickly by saying that we do not yet have a P3 credential option to apply for, so she would need to apply for admission to the multiple subject credential program probably. But she should call our helpline at the CTC and get further advice from our certification staff.
Great. I appreciate you taking the time to answer that. Recording Secretary, are there other public comments?
Andrea Fernandez, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Fernandez, and I'm with California Children's Academy. I have permitted teachers in my program, and we offer both CCTR and CSPP to our preschool children. I just ask that in making the changes and looking at the permits and the credentials to please be mindful to be inclusive of women of color whose first language is not English. And in changing the permits and credentials requirements would be challenged in going back to the school. I'm a professional growth advisor, and it's been difficult to not only maintain teachers, but get them going forward in the field. And to be mindful of providing support, both financial and educational, including access. We have a hard time hiring teachers as it is. It's going to be even harder once changes happen and they're not helped and facilitated to get into those changes as well. I'm happy to provide any information that you might need and insight into the ECE world of funded programs. Thank you for listening and providing this opportunity.
Great. Thank you for your time. Recording Secretary, are there other public comments?
Eden Hayward Bird, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello, and thank you to the Commission. My name is Dr. Eden Haywood Bird, and I am the interim department chair and full-time associate professor at Cal Poly Pomona in the Early Childhood Studies program. First, I would like to commend the Commission on thinking in creative ways to address the early childhood teacher shortage, as well as give alternative pathways to those professionals who have not gone through a credential program and have decided to obtain a early child or the child development permit. That said, I would encourage the Commission to think about extending any sort of credential P3 down to birth through 3, encompassing the entirety of early childhood development. I would also encourage the Commission to look at the new ECE TPEs as being required for all educators who teach in the P through 3rd grade system, taking the place of the multiple subject in the TK through 3rd grade range. In that way, we can be assured that those teachers who are multiple subject credentialed and may not have those 24 units of early childhood are meeting the competencies and expectations for teaching young children throughout that early childhood range. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Recording Secretary, are there other public comments?
just giving it a moment, and we have not received any additional requests for public comment.
Okay. I will also give it a little bit more time before we close the public comment period. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period for this item. So officially, the public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Thank you. Commissioner De La Torre.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I had a question because I know we're referring to TK, but I know there's also ETK, and I'm wondering if that's included within the range, because ETK is younger than the TK age students. And I also, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was going to just make sure Ms. Jacobson was going to, if it's a two-parter, go for it, Commissioner De La Torre.
Oh, and the other part's not a question. It's just, it is a concern that we do need to, I have the early childhood certification as well, and I know it's very different. I'm also a credential teacher, but I learned so much in my ECE units that generally credential teachers would not have that background, and it's very important when working with our youngest learners. So I wanted to echo that sentiment.
Thank you for those comments. Could I just ask for clarification? My sound is not as clear as it might be. Could you say again the term that you're asking about?
Yes, we have a group of students that our learners are early transitional kindergartners. So they're younger than the transitional kindergarten students. But so it's more like a preschool program. It is preschool, but it's earlier than TK. And it's called ETK, early transitional kindergarten. And are they included in this credential discussion?
Let me jump in, Dr. Jacobson, and say I think that we at the moment we should put the whole spectrum on the table. It's on the table for discussion. What groups should be included? I think the immediate problem that this item surfaces is that we have shortages, and we're expecting to have a significantly increased need for transitional kindergarten for 4-year-olds as that TK moves into the K-12. That is just one issue under the umbrella of issues that we have the opportunity to take a look at and look at the credentialing structure for. I think Dr. Jacobson's item speaks to the need for a coherent early childhood credential system and structure. And by virtue of including both this concept of a bridge credential for early childhood specialists with discussion of the child development permit, we've put the whole spectrum of 0 to 8 on the table in this meeting, and our preference would be to think about that as a whole system and think about the credentialing within that system as we move forward. So that's how I think we're thinking about it.
Great, thank you. Just to go through the list is that I have Commissioner Heredia, I have Commissioner Simons, Commissioner Grenner-Shire, and Commissioner Francois. Commissioner Heredia, you want to begin?
Yeah, thank you. It's a rich discussion, and I've learned a lot. I have a multiple subject credential, but and some ECE courses at the undergraduate level, but nothing that would constitute another credential if I so choose to go back to work. But I understand the need for it. But I just have a process question about because we've received and one of them was answered. We've received several recommendations before we move forward, and I'm just kind of wanting to talk about the process question for all the recommendations, the public comments, and then how those recommendations then are considered. I don't know if that can be addressed at this time right now. It's just that that's some of the emails that I received prior to this meeting asked about the process. I'm just asking the question.
I agree that we have received a rich amount of commentary, and we've certainly heard lots of suggestions for how this work might move forward. I think one of the things we want to do as a staff is go back over all of these comments and glean from them some of the common themes and what this represents for our work moving forward. We did indicate in the agenda item that we would be continuing to work collaboratively with the field on several of these areas, including thinking about what an appropriate ECE credential structure might be to serve the needs of the workforce and to serve the needs of employers and programs, and most importantly, of course, the children being served. And we are also looking at rethinking what the permit structure should look like. And I think that work is what we're planning to do next, unless Dr. Sandy wants to add something further to that.
I will just add to that a little bit. I think that we have a very engaged stakeholder community that cares very deeply and has been waiting for a long time for the opportunity to have this discussion. And we really want to honor that and engage with the field around this. The item discusses the establishment of a broadly representative advisory panel, which is our normal way. But I think in this case, in order for us to really thoroughly engage with the field, we may need to consider having some focus group conversations and some invited sessions for the people who have made such strong comments today to express them a little bit more deeply in a deeper conversation in a way that we can't really facilitate at this table at this time. But I would expect, commissioners, that some aspect of this item will be on your agenda for the next several months of meeting, because the goal would be to, paying attention to the time frame for implementation of universal transitional kindergarten. That train is moving down the track, and there's a real need for the commission to establish some kind of credential expectations and opportunities, really. How are we going to credential in the field? So our goal would be to really spend the next several months clarifying the ideas, the issues, the options, and engaging with the field and engaging with you as commissioners about which ideas seem to have the most import moving forward as we restructure credentials. Next year, I would expect to see, as we reach to consensus with the commission through, all of the conversations we're going to have, you should expect to see a regulatory package next year that would establish requirements for credentialing in this area. And ideally, we can get those through the process and available as early as 2023. So that the field that is I think, avidly interested in how they're going to staff these classrooms, that they have all the signals they need in order to move forward. And I'm sure Commissioner Simmons can add texture and color to that comment as somebody who's working closely with us there. So lots of stakeholder engagement, lots of an opportunity to engage with commissioners, the formation of a group to help us make sense of what we're hearing from the field. Regulations next year, possibly standards and requirements for establishing an early childhood specialist program option leading to that credential, all of that within the next 12 months, if that helps.
Yes, thank you. I just want to echo the support for the comments that talked about looking at flexible ways in which to offer these courses. I'm thinking about these rural communities that have such limited resources, the ones that were particularly hit hard by the pandemic, just with broadband use and transportation and teachers. So one of the ideas that I remember at some credential programs that were not held on campus, that were held in a community center at an elementary school. Or even sometimes when you've got, apartment complexes. But I think that we should consider all locations on the table and bring this opportunity for, those in the field to have access easy to these courses, to instructors, or to the courses online in one location within their community, if the numbers merit that. And then let's see, there was one more rural district. Oh, and apprenticeship programs. Again, looking at the benefits of offering an apprenticeship program for those working in the field already and have multiple years of experience. And finally, I just want to say that I think it's really critical for people to understand how this credential differs than a multiple subject credential. I think when people get a multiple subject credential, for example, they think, which allows you to teach, multiple grades except for the secondary. They think they can teach any grade level. And then when they get in those classrooms, then all of a sudden they're in shock about how different age levels, the issues that they could be confronted with. But, the early childhood is such a specialized field. And I just think that there really has to be a lot of communication on how different it is than what a single subject credential person would, the skills and knowledge that they would need. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for the conversation and for the longer term picture, Executive Director Sandy. So we had some other context to go with this. And you set up Commissioner Simmons. So let's go, Commissioner Simmons.
Well, I just want to thank Phyllis and Mary for a great item. I almost wish it was an action item so that I could vote yes. I think that just from the very beginning of it, where accessible is in the title of the item. I think that, during the pandemic, we have actually discovered times when kids were sent home because we could not staff classrooms. And if we make unreasonable barriers, that's really where that we'll be at, because it doesn't matter what the commission says is a requirement. If I, as a human resources person, can't staff the class, it's not going to happen. So I really like the fact that, and I think that it is Chair Darlene Hammond, she's not Chair Darlene Hammond anymore, but whatever her title is, when she was talking about an elegant solution, this really is an elegant solution. And it threads the needle in ways that other times really we haven't been able to. And I've seen other cases where that we got bogged down and never moved forward because they lack this kind of elegant solution. And I think that while our long-term goal is maybe creating a 3-to-3 credential, on every practical way, this proposal will do that. It doesn't create any new barriers to teaching TK. It doesn't create any barriers to staffing UTK. It maintains appropriate boundaries or barriers around that there would still be a BA requirement, a subject matter requirement, albeit not the CSET, a child development subject matter requirement, and a basic skills requirement of some sort, which we've already legislatively got some flexibility there. I think also not RECA, but some kind of early literacy requirement that's appropriate that we have in here. We could foresee from the item new accessible options to meet the apportionment requirements of Education Code 48,000. It also does not blur the lines between apportionment requirements and licensure requirements. I think that's an important piece. It just will move the governor's whole early childhood plan forward. So I love all of that too. I think that we have to acknowledge that there are still huge blockades to moving towards universal TK. Facilities are a problem across the state. I know in my district, we do not have enough playgrounds that are rated for 2 to 5. Restrooms are going to be an issue. I think that the entire market for childcare is going to be shifted as universal TK sucks up all the 4-year-olds and pretty much leaves 3-year-olds left in the state preschool system. So in my district, we're really going to have to be struggling with, do we even continue to offer preschool if it's only going to be 3-year-olds? Or do we partner with community-based organizations so that they could increase their slots to meet the needs of 3-year-olds? Will some of those community-based organizations still be able to meet the needs of preschool when 3-year-olds are your only students? It becomes a whole lot more expensive to maintain those programs. So there are huge blockages that are still potentially there that we have to work around. And I would hope that credentialing is not going to be one of the main barriers. I think that having wider stakeholders is really a good idea. And Phyllis, when you mentioned the groups of stakeholders, I didn't hear California Teachers Association or CESESA as being partners. And the reason why I bring them up in particular is because of Commissioner Heredia's point about having multiple pathways that are accessible. I know when we retooled the entire state's workforce to get English learner authorizations, CTA was a wonderful partner with their 1969 training that they did. CESESA did retraining under SB 95 and AB 2913. So I think all of those stakeholders also need to be part of the conversation. And I think AXA, representing employers, should also be part of that stakeholder group. Because again, if we can't hire the people, it doesn't matter what the programs are there. If there's no teachers, you have to send the kids home. And I will also say that one of the hardest things that, when this is in my previous life when I was running credential programs for Ventura County, one of the hardest programs that we wrote was the added authorization for early childhood special education. And whatever process that the bridge comes in, it's going to have to be both doable, but it's going to have to meet the particular needs of that 3 years old to 3rd grade population. And I know when we wrote that credential program in response to the commission standards, we had to bring in people who had child development permits. We had to bring in special educators with mild moderate, with mod severe, and both gen ed and special ed. So I think having that kind of breadth within our stakeholders is very important. But I just want to again say how much I love this item, and I think that it really it will move us forward. And I especially like the timeline that Mary talked about, with which I think we said that we would get everything back from the Office of Administrative Law by a year from December. I think that is yeah, I think that's really what we want. Because we're going to, next August, I'm going to have twice as many TKs as what I have this year. And by the time we're done, I probably will have 5 times as many TK classrooms as what I have right now. And making that work is not, you know, I don't want credentialing to be the major barrier that I'm having to work through. So thank you.
Can I just comment, Madam Chair, that if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. So please treat my sketches in the air here as wishes and hopes. And but we really want to be there for you as you need this to be online, Commissioner Simmons and employer community.
Commissioner Grenner-Shire.
I always appreciate Commissioner Simmons' experience and his understanding of the details of implementation. So I just want to acknowledge you, David, for your comments. I will quickly, just with my comments, I want to thank Dr. Jacobson and the team and all the public comments. I heard several themes, and I heard Dr. Jacobson say that the team's going to go back and think about these themes, and then perhaps, I hope, come back to the commission so that we can calibrate what we heard and what we agree is important in moving forward this process. I have been thinking about this topic for quite a bit of time, and I agree with many speakers who talked about urgent, medium, long-term, and now I'll add elegant solutions that involve multiple pathways to serve the needs of 0 through 8. I really appreciate Executive Director Sandy talking about the whole system. This is the time to do this. And since we are creating this together, I hope we do talk about the whole system. I also appreciate Mary explaining the process that the Commission engages in and has always engaged in to make sure we include stakeholder voice in all of these decisions. And I trust the Commission to do that. I have just one worry that I'm thinking about, and that is the impact this will have on the rest of the early childhood education workforce. I've heard that a couple of times in other conversations I've had, so I want to make sure that we don't forget that, and that whatever we design is not going to have a negative ripple effect on these early learners. So again, I just want to thank Dr. Jacobson for this work. I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Schlo.
Thank you. I'll just make a few quick comments. I want to thank Dr. Jacobson for this really well-written item. It was very helpful to understand something so complex. And I just wanted to also thank the stakeholders and everybody who's made the comments. I don't need to repeat what people have said because I think we have really developed a robust understanding of what the issues are here. What I did want to just point out is perhaps just a few points about the moment that we are in and the opportunities that we have, because this is different in many ways compared to what we have been doing so far in our EPC work. One is that there are these obvious links between 2-year and 4-year institutions where each of those types of programs can bring expertise to bear on the issues at hand. The second thing is that we can both build on what we have in these 2- and 4-year institutions, and we have opportunities to build something new. We have so many ways of thinking about this work in terms of, lattice pathways, multiple pathways, and especially this idea of competency-based in terms of understanding what it is that our teachers need to know and be able to do, and how do we know that they can do them. In other words, competency-based is a different way of thinking about things than make sure they get X number of units. The third thing is that we also can think about the continuous professional learning that might be needed and is always needed for teachers. Teaching is a lifelong endeavor, but let's think perhaps about what we can do in this arena as we move forward. Maybe we think about induction and preliminary in a different way. Maybe there's a tighter connection. Maybe there are multiple steps, but let's get creative and really think what's going to be best for our students and our teachers going into the field. The fourth thing I want to acknowledge is the overwhelming public comment regarding the particular knowledge base that is required for these teachers and the quality preparation that we need. And I was particularly struck in reading this item and the master plan and everything else that I have about the need for expertise in working with multilingual learners and learners, many of these young children whose home language is not English. Finally, I want to acknowledge also what's new and different and important perhaps is that we're working in concert with the State Board of Education, the Governor's Office, the California Department of Ed, multiple funding streams from the federal government, et cetera, which we need to do, because if we're increasing standards to ensure that we have well-prepared teachers in this base, in this place, their salaries and other things need to follow. We have to then keep in pace with what other segments that are linked to this work is doing. So that's all I wanted to say. It's an exciting opportunity for us moving forward. And boy, what a great conversation we've been having about that this morning. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And listening again to Commissioner Simmons and everybody, and the state board chair talking about being proactive and the need we'll have. I just have a question, or potentially it's premature, so maybe it's a recommendation as we move forward and looking at the different elements. But what's the demand for the teacher prep programs to offer an ECE specialist credential, or how are we thinking about incentivizing the transition that our TPPs will have to take to address the demand and for us to be proactive in creating the supply of these educators?
If I could just say a little, whoops, I'm not muted. Okay. If I could just say a little bit about that. I really have been very, very heartened and impressed in working with the 2-year community colleges and the 4-year community colleges in collaboration on the work that we've been doing on our early childhood education pilots. As you know, and we've reported to you before, we have over 57 now institutions that are working with us on implementing competency-based approaches to preparation of the early childhood workforce. We are still getting inquiries from interested institutions to join in the pilots. I think that there is a great appetite out there and a desire to help people in this field get the knowledge, skills, and abilities they need and to move forward in the profession. We have seen nothing but collaboration, communication, and more of what else can we do and how can we make these things accessible. Granted, there are certain barriers in the field, resources, time, and all of the other ones that come into play. But in terms of willingness to work on this and seeing the need for staffing these programs and being proactive and creative about how those needs can be addressed is something that I personally have been very impressed with in the work that we've been doing.
That's great. That's very encouraging. Yeah, did you want to add, Executive Director?
Yes, I just like to add, I think I definitely echo Dr. Jacobson. This community is so ready to be engaged. But I appreciate your question also, Commissioner Martinez, regarding how to resource this to move it forward. And I think that's a conversation we need to take up, possibly in preparation for next year's budget with the legislature and the administration, just to make sure that we have the pathways can be developed. I mean, dreaming it up is one thing, but actually developing these pathways so that people can complete them and move into the workforce is really quite important. So we'll be engaging in that conversation as well.
And just follow-up question, and then I see that Commissioner Francois would like to get in here, is we're thinking about the multiple pathways being a 4-year path to an ECE specialist credential, right? And a 5-year master program as well, or we haven't, that's what we're going to be determining over the next few months.
I think that's what we'll be determining over the next, all ideas are on the table.
Okay.
Then we need to set down what's the possible.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Francois?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on capacity. About a decade ago, UCLA's teacher education program offered an ECE pathway to a ECE, I forget what level certification, because the ECE permit queue is quite complex, but to an ECE permit at elementary credential and eventually a master's degree. And it was actually directed by one of our public speakers, Helen Davis at UCLA Extension. And it was quite successful. We had no problems recruiting, and it was a residency program as well, which at the time, residencies were really conceived as apprentice-like program. We had no problem at all recruiting candidates into the program. It was a full cohort for the 4 years that we offered the credential. The thing that prevented us from continuing that credential, and I would like to say also that we had a lot as an elementary program, especially to learn from the ECE world. The reason why we didn't continue with the program is because after a couple of years, we saw all of our candidates move from ECE settings into elementary setting, and it all had to do with pay. We had focus groups and they ended up being the most elegant and qualified and skilled elementary teachers I would say that we have ever produced out of UCLA. And it's because of that strong ECE background that they have. So, I mean, I am not advocating for, preparing an ECE to fill the shortage in elementary, but all of that is to say that we do have capacity at the IHE level, particularly in collaboration with our community partners, Peach being one of the strongest partners that we had, as well as our ECE centers, research and practice. So I think there's a lot of possibility here, and I'm really excited that it's something that we're taking up very seriously, and we need to really consider the direction we go in relation to how are we going to pay these folks once we get them for the talent that they bring, the important talent and knowledge and skills and abilities that they bring to our young children.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. And I don't see any other commissioners' comments or questions. I'm just going to look real quick. And then we will, as you guys know, this is not an action item. This is an information item only. So without any questions, I think we can conclude 2A and give a huge thanks to Ms. Jacobson and all of the commission for the work you have done and for the work you will be doing over the next year around this, and the multiple perspectives and stakeholders' comments that you will be integrating as we move forward in a proactive way to best serve our young children and our educators.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I still have a couple more items, and I only have one more item, but let me check with you all if you would like to go ahead and finish the one item, which is 2D on special ed. If you guys would like a break, maybe 20 minutes, folks are hungry as well. So I turn it over to you commissioners who are sitting here so wonderfully engaged about what kind of break you would like. And I'm going to look at Chair Sloan to see what she thinks.
I just thought I would ask, maybe we can get a sense. Our next item, we could do that and then break for lunch and at least maybe get a 30-minute lunch in, or we could break now for a 30-minute lunch. If you would like to break, I'll give you two choices. If you would like to break now, please raise your hand.
I like to break down.
Okay, we've got 3. If you would like to do this next item and break when we're finished with this item, raise your hand. All right, I think we're going to finish with 2D. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for getting that vote in there, Chair Sloan. So we're now going to go to item 2D. This is the update on the local solutions to the shortage of special education teachers grants program. This item is being presented by Christina Najarro. This is an information item. Ms. Najarro, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon, Commission members. It's my pleasure to be here today to present an update to you on the impact of the local solutions to the shortage of special education teachers grant programs. This agenda item provides the data collected for the 2020-2021 school year. $50 million was included in the 2018 state budget to address teacher shortages in special education. 41 local education agencies, or LEAs, were awarded grants up to $20,000 per participating teacher to implement locally designed solutions to increase the number of special education teachers by prioritizing strategies for identifying, recruiting, preparing, employing, and supporting newly credentialed special education teachers through teacher induction programs or other professional learning opportunities. Additionally, LEAs could use local solutions funds to assist teachers who may be credentialed in another field who want to become credentialed special education teachers. The request for proposals, or RFP, required staff to collect data in 2 major areas: program participation and program effectiveness. I'll now review the data from the 2020-2021 academic year, which was the second full year of local solutions program implementation. As of June 30th, 2021, grant recipients reported 2,048 unique participants in the Local Solutions Grant Program. Table 1 on page 3 of the item lists the 15 local solutions activities suggested in authorizing legislation and named in the RFP. It also shows the distribution of participants across those activities and their related expenditures. It is important to note that any individual participating teacher may have been served by funds allocated in more than one of the activities listed in this table. You'll notice that funds spent to identify, recruit, and prepare new special education teachers, as well as tuition support and signing bonuses, are where the bulk of grant funding was allocated. Tables 2 through 4 provide demographic data on the teachers supported by the Local Solutions Grant. Table 2 on page 4 details the participants by self-identified ethnicity and race. Of the data reported, 1/4 of the participants self-identified as Hispanic or Latinx of any race, 42% as white, and 13% of the participants declined to state their ethnicity and race. Tables 3 and 4, both on page 5, represent participant self-identified gender and sexual orientation. Of the data reported for gender, there has been an increase in the numbers and percentages of participants who identify as male from 13% in year 1 to 19% in year 2, and those identifying as non-binary from 0% in year 1 to 0.5% in year 2, with the majority of respondents being female. Of the 70% of participating teachers who provided sexual orientation data, over half self-identified as heterosexual or straight. Now that we have learned a bit about the teachers supported by Local Solutions Grant funds and the activities in which funds were allocated, let's take a look at program implementation effectiveness. As a reminder, the intent of the authorizing legislation was to increase the special education teacher workforce through locally designed recruitment, preparation, and support plans. The legislation required that every participant who receives a teacher service scholarship, signing bonus, or a student debt payment agreed to teach at a school within the jurisdiction of the grantee LEA, serving a caseload of pupils who receive special education services in a special education setting for 4 years. Table 5 on page 6 reports the hiring data of these participants and speaks to the success that programs are having in recruiting teachers that they wish to retain into the future. It's important to note that some participants received funding in more than one of these 3 categories, so they are counted as many times as they received support. Staff was excited to learn that 98% of Local Solutions participants who received one or more of these specific funding types are on track to be hired. The last section of this item contains representative samples from program leaders' responses to questions about retention, teacher preparedness, effective practices, factors that hindered implementation, and lessons learned. In the samples shared in this item, you will see that the pandemic played a role in hindering recruitment efforts, in-person training, and live classroom observations of teachers working with students. But despite that, the LEAs who received Local Solutions Grant awards report that 1, turnover rates have been reduced. 2, fewer teachers are working on intern credentials, permits, or waivers. 3, signing bonuses and tuition support incentives have attracted special education teachers to vacancies. 4, new special education teachers are experiencing early success in their classroom as a result of the coaching, mentoring, and training they're receiving. And 5, this funding has allowed LEAs and their collaborative partners to provide an affordable pathway to increase the special education teacher supply that in many cases better mirrors the student demographics. In closing, the next report to the Commission on the Local Solutions to the Shortage of Special Education Teachers Grant will be next fall and will include the 2021-2022 school year data. And now I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have about this item.
Thank you so much, Ms. Najarro, for this report. We're now going to open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or press star 9 if participating by phone. I'll give folks a chance. And recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Yes, we have Shilpa Ram. Please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello, my name is Shilpa Ram, and I'm a senior staff attorney at Public Advocates. Thank you so much for your presentation on this important issue. Like all of you, we are extremely concerned about the worsening teacher shortage in California, and especially concerned about its impact on the field of special education. For example, in the Learning Policy Institute's 2020 report entitled California Special Education Teacher Shortage, approximately 2/3 of teachers entering the field of special education held a substandard permit or credential. With respect to this item, the anecdotal evidence included about smaller turnover rates in some areas and lower numbers of teachers on substandard credentials in others speaks to the urgent need for support. We're glad to see that these grants have provided interim relief to LEAs during this tough time. However, given the extent of the shortages and the multiple ways in which the pandemic has already affected and adversely affected students with disabilities, including with respect to distance learning, such shorter term solutions may not be sustainable. So I wonder, could the most effective practices identified in the item be scaled such that greater numbers of participants could benefit? It was good to see living stipends identified as a locally identified solution, for example, but relatively few participants benefited. Could LEAs consider annual general use stipends for special education teachers to promote retention? Finally, we understand that Commission staff plan to focus on data collection in their continued technical assistance to LEAs. This is, of course, important. We'd also like to encourage greater focus, not only on technical assistance and grant administration, but coordination and relationship building. Are teacher candidates and LEAs aware, for example, that teacher candidates may be eligible for multiple grants at once? Could Commission staff do more to promote the classified program, including spreading awareness to LEAs that do not currently host it, but may be interested in doing so? Could Commission staff perhaps in their discussions with LEAs remind them that they have the option to use their educator effectiveness block grants, should they so choose, to support inclusive practices and coach staff on developing IEPs and Section 504 plans for students with disabilities? I respectfully offer these suggestions for staff consideration as you put together your technical assistance plan for the coming year. Thank you again for your presentation and for the opportunity to comment.
The comment. Recording secretary, do we have other public comments?
We do not have any additional requests for public comment.
Okay. Just give it a second. Okay. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Again, I'm just going to check around for any virtual hands. Okay. Commissioners, this is an information item. No actions needed, but do we have any questions or comments on this item? Please raise your hand. Virtual or otherwise. Commissioner Gross.
Thank you so much, Christina, for this presentation. And as a special education teacher, right, like this local solutions grant just like speaks to the heart of what we do day to day with our students with disabilities and the need to recruit and retain folks to serve in our system. My question was around the tracking of actual participants in the grant program. I'm wondering, the 763 folks who received money this past year, are those the same folks from the first year, or are these new folks? So I guess my question is, are we tracking how many, the total impact and like the total number of people who will go through this program? Because I know that there's also the multiple counting if you got multiple funding. So I'm just trying to figure out how do I find the actual number of people who then become teachers?
Okay, so there are two different numbers that I think we're talking about. On table one, that is the total. The table one is everybody who was enrolled in each of these, or who received funds in each of these types of categories. Then down in table 5, these are only the 3 that require repayment if a teacher doesn't fulfill a 4-year service commitment. So there are more than 763 teachers who received funding total. There were 2,043, I believe, 48 teachers this year that were enrolled in a program. only 763 received those types of funds that would need repayment. Last year we had, just look at my notes really quickly. Last year for year one, there were a total of 3,658 teachers enrolled in a local solutions program. So in total, we have over 5,000, close to 6,000 folks so far who have been enrolled in programs and received funding. And we are tracking really more closely those folks who earn those funding support for those three types that have to be repaid, because they are required to fulfill that 4-year service requirement or repay money to the grant. Did that answer your question?
It does. So I wanted to know if it was cumulative, or if every year, if I'm in the program for more than 1 year, am I counted twice?
That is possible, and that is something that we are creating a new question about for the next year's report. Yes.
All right, thank you.
I have a question about the tables as well. I appreciate the disaggregation you all provided where you can. And I wonder if it was possible to disaggregate any of the numbers on table 5 when it comes to the 3 categories that you just referenced with Commissioner Gross. So if you were able to disaggregate by ethnicity, or probably I'm more interested in that, for the teacher service scholarship, the signing bonus, and the student debt. Is that possible?
We can definitely look into that, yes, for next year's report.
Yeah, I'd be really curious about that. Thanks. Other questions? Oh, Chair Sloan, your comments?
Yes, I was just struck by the rich sort of feedback that we have whenever we get these items on the evaluation of our grant programs, that especially the lessons learned and also around our discussion. But I'm wondering if we can think about what we want to do with this in future in terms of informing practices to programs and to teacher candidates. That's one thing. Particularly when, as we do our strategic planning, we note the ways in which the field would like the commission to be a lead in workforce development in some way, shape, or form. The other thing that I was thinking about is the comments about the multiple grant programs for programs and the multiple places that funding exists for aspiring teachers, and how difficult it is sometimes to navigate that, and the ways in which we might think about figuring out ways to centralize the opportunities in an easy to access way. So just thoughts to put on the table as we continue our strategic planning moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. That would be wonderful. Do I see any other, do you have any other questions or comments? Again, Ms. Naharro, great report and of great interest to all of us, and appreciate you all tracking this information and providing us with the detailed information you did. I believe with that, and someone just interrupt me, but I believe that I don't see any other questions or items, and this information item is then going to be closed since no action is needed. And with that, having no additional items, I adjourn the Educator Preparation Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. We will now break for lunch for 30 minutes. Would commissioners please return at 12:50? And we'll resume our meeting. Enjoy your lunch, get up, walk around, and we'll see you in 30 minutes.